Chapter 2452. Because I heard someone say that someone gave her a love letter. Qian Sinai held her face and kissed away her tears. I'll be jealous. No matter how difficult the situation was, he relied on his faith to desperately come to her side. No one could stop him, no one in the heavens or the earth. Even death couldn't stop him. Luo Qingchen was a bit surprised as she suddenly thought of the scene in the Qian Manor yesterday. So he could hear her, I just feel that our Qing's ringtone is really good. He revealed a gentle smile as his beautiful eyes sparkled as he looked at her. So, I called you. Qian Sinai. Luo Qingchen pursed her lips as she softly called his name. He softly replied. With a slightly choked voice, he took her in his embrace again. The surrounding temperature seemed to be warming up bit by bit, and the dark clouds in the blue sky gradually dissipated. The incandescent lights in the classroom no longer flickered and no longer made that strange Z sound. Qian Sinai's hug was very warm, so warm that she felt that if she closed her eyes, she could sleep peacefully. She would never wake up in the middle of the night again, and she would never have nightmares again. Without knowing how long passed, Luo Qingchen softly left his embrace. She pursed her lips and looked at him with a bit of pride. Instead, he raised his hand and lovingly patted her head. This scene made Hua Kaijin, who was below, smile knowingly. He softly clapped his hands and looked at Qian Sinai. Brother, welcome back. Thank you. Luo Qingmian saw this and immediately stood up to wave her hand. Big brother, welcome back. I was the one who saved this seat for you. Right, just like that. Unhumph. Qian Sinai narrowed his eyes and raised a brow. Why is it that after coming to the modern world, not only can you see, you can even see the future? Luo Qingmian blinked. Pisces' sixth sense is always very accurate. He continued, in short, it's great that you can come back. I tried my best to return to your sister's side. Qian Sinai looked at Luo Qingchen with a look of infatuation. I'm afraid she won't wait for me and will fall in love with someone else. Brother, don't worry. I'll keep an eye out for you. You're the one who worries me the most. PFFF. Listening to their conversation, Luo Qingchen couldn't help but laugh. This kind of feeling was really good. This kind of world was really good. Perhaps it was because of the apocalypse, or perhaps it was because of the separation of life and death. She cherished such a beautiful and quiet world even more. However, ever since that day, her classmates were especially afraid of her. Although she still maintained her gentle and obedient appearance, they would always nod and bow politely when they saw her. Some would even use honorifics. What made her feel the most awkward was that every time the class teacher walked toward her, she would turn around the moment she saw her. How fast was she? If it wasn't for the modern world, she would have been able to catch up to the zombies of the apocalypse. However, something worth mentioning was that the students of the school called Qian Sinai, Hua Kaijin, and Luo Qingmian, the three school hunks, the three swordsmen. Although the name was a bit old-fashioned, it had to be said that the people of this world had good eyes. Chapter 2453. After all, this was a school for nobles. Although there weren't many people left after the apocalypse, there were still quite a few students who transferred here. Among them, there was no lack of pure and innocent girls. Of course, they could only watch Qian Sinai from afar. They couldn't get close. It wasn't that Luo Qingchen wasn't willing, but there was a girl who boldly confessed to Qian Sinai and decided to compete fairly with Luo Qingchen. In the next second, the surrounding temperature plummeted. In the spring of March, it was -10 degrees, and it was snowing heavily. That girl had a high fever that wouldn't go down. She had to rest at home for a month before gradually getting better. Returning to school again, when she saw Qian Sinai, she walked around him. She would rather walk for another half an hour than have the chance to pass by him. After all, she wasn't willing to suffer such inhumane pain. Luo Qingchen indicated that this really had nothing to do with her. Her Qian Sinai had always had the skill of fighting the supporting female lead. Now that there was no supporting female lead, he could only fight cannon fodder. This kind of professionalism wasn't something a normal male lead could have. As for Luo Qingmian and Hua Kaijin, they were the dream lovers of all the girls in school. One was gentle, and the other was an elegant gentleman. Moreover, they were both incredibly handsome youths. Not only were they good at studying, they were heaven-defying existences in terms of looks and sports. Naturally, there were many little sisters who were infatuated with them, and there was no lack of arrogant young misses. Although they weren't as vicious as Bailiansheen, there were quite a few princess tempers. They gathered in twos and threes, forming their own faction. The thing they did the most was to please Luo Qingchun. There were countless people who gave her gifts. Luo Qingchun finally experienced what it felt like to be above others. Although she didn't like any of these girls, she thought that her eyes weren't bad. The people she didn't like shouldn't be liked by her little brother and Huakai Jin. June 19th, the sun was high in the sky. The last two classes in the morning were both physical education classes. The school hunks, the three musketeers, were still showing off their superb skills and perfect cooperation on the court. After all, they had defeated a level 9 zombie together, so their tacit understanding wasn't something to be proud of. Luo Qingshun, on the other hand, was sitting on a stone bench at the side, drinking mineral water with a hint of leisure in her eyes. Little did they know that under such circumstances, the two groups of little princesses actually quarreled. "Hey, I saw you purposely giving water to young Master Ikari. Who gave you the courage? Wasn't it supposed to be a fair competition? You're still playing tricks. What a joke. What's wrong with passing him a bottle of water? Are you guys not confident in your looks or your figures? Wow, who do you think you are? Your family can't even be ranked in this circle, okay? Yes, you're qualified. Then why didn't young Master Jean choose you? Because the person I like is Senior Mion. I just can't stand your despicable behavior of trying to curry favor." The two sides continued to quarrel. Luo Qingchen frowned and looked at Huakai Jin and Luo Qingyan. They spread their hands at her at the same time, sending her a message. "What else is going on? What's going on? It really has nothing to do with us?" Luo Qingchun laughed coldly and was about to stand up to preside over the situation. One of the girls picked up a basketball from the ground and threw it at the other party. Chapter 2454. Be careful, Luo Qingchun softly shouted. The girl turned around and saw a familiar pair of clear eyes. Mu Jin. She recognized the girl at a glance. In the post-apocalyptic world, this was the girl who had protected her half-brother. Although she wasn't a psychic, she had done everything she could. She didn't expect that they would meet again. This feeling was like meeting an old friend in a foreign country. Although she didn't remember anything, she felt a sense of closeness. However, even if they were familiar, it couldn't change the trajectory of the basketball. With a dong sound, the basketball heavily hit her head. Probably because the force of the basketball was too strong, Mu Jin didn't stand firm and fell to the ground. Huakai Jin and Luo Qingyan saw this and ran towards Mu Jin at the same time. They helped her up and asked in unison, "Are you okay?" Mu Jin didn't seem to have recovered from a shock. She fearfully took a step back and hurriedly shook her head. I'm fine. She was originally a new student, but because of an accident on the way, she arrived late. She didn't expect that when she arrived, a basketball would fall from the sky and hit her. In the next second, Huakai Jin was the first to recognize the girl in front of him. He excitedly held her hand and said, "You're Mu Jin?" At the same time, Luo Qingyan also recognized her. He smiled and said, "I didn't expect that we would meet again." Compared to the modern world, friendship in the post-apocalyptic world was much more precious. Mu Jin was clearly frightened by the series of recognition. She touched her head and asked curiously, "How do you know my name?" Because little did they know that before they finished speaking, Luo Qingshun walked over from not far away and looked at Mu Jin with a smile. "The two of them have a crush on you." See, the surrounding people sucked in a breath of cold air. Among them, the two little princesses revealed jealous and angry gazes. Huakai Jin and Luo Qingyan looked at Luo Qingshun in confusion. However, she only did a very familiar action between them. He spread out his hands. Mu Jin was a little frightened. After she regained her senses, she carefully sized up the two youths in front of her. The sunlight was intoxicating, as elegant as a painting. This was her first impression of the two of them. Looking at their beautiful faces against the light, she blushed a little embarrassedly. Ahem. Luo Qingshun cleared her throat and said, "Class is about to end. I'm going to have lunch with our classmate Qianxi Nai. You can send Mu Jin to the school's infirmary for a checkup." It's all right. I'm fine. The impact of a basketball on the head can be big or small. What if there's a concussion or some deviation memory? It's not good to think about things from other worlds. Luo Qingshun pursed her lips with a smile that was not a smile. She waved her hand at them and said, "This sister will only help you up to this point. You have to work hard for the rest." As soon as her voice fell, Qian Sinai held her hand and looked at her with a pampering gaze. He said in her ear, "I never thought that our family's Qing Qing was a great matchmaker. I just can't stand those little princesses chattering in my ear all day. If there's a girl that can make them stop being single, that would be a very wonderful thing. So who do you think will be able to get Mu Jin?" Luo Qingchan thought for a bit before her brows trembled as she said, "I don't know." In the years of youth, bold pursuit was an essential compulsory course. Moreover, it was such an outstanding girl. In her eyes, no matter who got Mu Jin, it was a lucky thing. Of course, no one was as lucky as her. Chapter 2455. Light can't stop. Love can't stop. I broke through the darkness and saw you in tears. Qian Sinai, since the moment I was sensible, I knew that I was different from others. Because my family studied the stars, divination, feng shui, and fate. When I was young, I didn't understand why I had to watch the stars every day and build all kinds of instruments. It wasn't until I grew up that I realized that many of the words he said were prophecies, and all the prophecies would come true. Since middle school, I was dazzling. Grandpa thought that this would easily expose our identities, so I began to disguise myself. At first, I didn't understand why I had to do these meaningless things until 3 months before the apocalypse. Grandpa told me that the world was over. January 1st, 2251, the bell of a new year, it was the music of death. I used 3 months to prepare and collected all the materials I needed. But I never thought that I would meet someone like me. We were classmates, but I didn't care about this person. Most of the people in the class were vain, so they naturally wouldn't notice me in disguise. What made me notice her was something she said. None of our names would appear. She was so confident that I felt like she knew that the apocalypse was coming. But how was that possible? After all, other than an expert like Grandpa, no one else knew about this. Even if I was doubtful, I still remembered her name, Luo Qingshun. After returning home, I told Grandpa about this. He was very shocked and immediately divined her fate. But what surprised Grandpa was that her fate didn't appear on the astrolabe. According to Grandpa's understanding, everything in the world, everyone's fate was engraved on the astrolabe the moment they were born. Their fate couldn't be changed unless they went against the heavens. Then why didn't her fate appear on the astrolabe? This doubt lingered in my mind for a long time, and I couldn't get rid of it. I was a rather stubborn person. Once I had doubts in my heart, I would desperately try to solve them. Later on, I was very grateful for my personality. After all, if it wasn't for my stubbornness, I wouldn't have been able to meet the person I loved so much. Of course, this was all in the future. I followed her for a whole day. The van wasn't very good, but she really bought a lot of things. Every time, they could fill up a box, but every time they entered the next purchasing point, the items in the container would mysteriously disappear. Fill it up again and disappear again. I was so shocked that I didn't even know how she did it. But if all the impossibilities were eliminated, then the only one left, even if it was impossible, was the truth. She had a special ability related to portable space. In the apocalypse, the name of this ability should be Space Creator. But how is that possible? Doomsday had not arrived yet. Logically speaking, zombies hadn't appeared yet, so there shouldn't be any paranormals who could contend with them. But everything she did was the spatial technique of an ability user. I decided then that I would see him. At least if the apocalypse came, she would be a very powerful person. There was nothing wrong with becoming an ally. Later on, I always wondered why I only thought of the simple relationship of allies. Chapter 2456. I brought her back to the Qian mansion and let her see Grandpa. Grandpa was very passionate. This was the first time he was this passionate in all the years I've been with him. At this point, I was even more certain of Luo Qingchen's strength and the necessity of having her as an ally. Of course, there was also some inexplicable admiration. Actually, I might have liked her a lot at that time. I just didn't know. I thought she would meet up with me before the end of the world. I wanted to use the Qian Mansion as the center to continuously obtain energy, digging out other ability users while saving humanity. Of course, I wasn't that passionate about saving humanity. It was just something that came along. But what I didn't expect was that she didn't meet up with me and directly cut off contact with me. Before awakening my ability, I couldn't leave the Qian Mansion. No matter how strong a person's physique was, in front of zombies, their fighting strength was less than 5 points. I could only use the CNC Center's equipment to find the location of ability users. But because I was too early, there were almost no ability users in the city. There were only a few. No matter if it was her body type or gender, it couldn't be her. It was probably from that time that I knew her position in my heart. That kind of anxious and flustered feeling was something I never had before, but I was very happy to be able to have this kind of feeling. Liking someone is a very strange thing. It will affect all of your emotions and make you unable to control yourself. At that time, I had this kind of feeling because I had already left the Qian Mansion before awakening my ability. To be honest, I thought I was crazy. And the reason I did this was because I knew I was an ability user. After all, Grandpa was a prophet, so it wasn't strange for me to know that I was an ability user. That included how to quickly awaken my ability. There was only one answer. That was to limit myself to the edge of life and death. Although the process was very dangerous and difficult, it was a good thing that I successfully awakened my ability, a dual ability of ice and water. The moment I awakened my superpower, I slaughtered my way out and searched for her location. Fortunately, the phone could still be connected and I could still locate her. When we met again, it felt like a lifetime had passed. Probably because the last time we met, the apocalypse hadn't arrived yet. Everything felt so harmonious. But this time, we were trapped in a small space. There was also a strange square dance music that kept playing, which made us feel irritated. Fortunately, I have awakened my superpower, so I can deal with this kind of phase 2 zombie easily. The moment I dealt with the zombies, I suddenly felt like a male lead. Actually, I was worried that when I killed the zombies, my movements wouldn't be cool enough. However, she didn't seem to care. After dealing with all the zombies, she didn't choose to return to the Qian Mansion with me. Instead, she resolutely decided to head to the Century Plaza. I don't know why she's going, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, I've already awakened my ability, so it's not difficult for me to protect her. Along the way, the young man named Chen Bing returned home. Before he left, he kept thanking him. At that time, I suddenly admired this human. In such a dangerous post-apocalyptic world, he didn't choose to follow a metahuman like me, but chose to stay with his family. Chapter 2457. At first, I didn't know why she had to come to Century Square. It wasn't until I saw the so-called by family that I guessed her purpose. They had a grudge, and it wasn't clear yet. Her complexion wasn't good, and I knew she was about to awaken her ability. However, even though she was in such a weak state, her every movement and expression were still filled with vigor. I had to say, I submitted to her vigor. The kind of gaze that could take away a little black-bellied was so captivating. Standing on the side, I felt that if this scene was in a modern world, I wouldn't be able to resist going up and confessing to her. No, with my personality, I should directly go up and force her to become my person. But first of all, this is the apocalypse, and second of all, I want to steal her female lead halo. I liked seeing her dazzling appearance. I liked it that way. Suddenly, I found that I was also that kind of perverted person. By Lian Xin's goodwill, I felt that it was a very disgusting fact. Even listening to her voice, I felt my stomach churn and was filled with disgust towards her. Later, our Qingqing told me that when we first met, she felt that I had a natural ability to diss the supporting female lead. As a result, when we met in the modern world, without Bai Lianxin as the supporting female lead, I began to patiently diss my admirer ABCD. Of course, it wasn't a single admirer, but a two-way admirer. Not only did I have a natural ability to diss the supporting female lead, I also had a natural ability to diss the supporting male lead. But this was all later. At that time, I didn't know what would happen in the future, and I didn't know that I would leave her. It was just that she who especially liked black-bellied was mesmerized by her words of choosing one out of three. She didn't soften her heart. Even at the last moment, when Yi Qinghuan and Bai Lianxin acted out a mother-daughter relationship, she still wanted Yi Qinghuan's life. Without any hesitation, I thought that after we left Century Square and picked up her mother, we would be able to reach the safe zone of Qian Mansion as soon as possible. I didn't expect that we would be ambushed on the way. At first, I just thought that this was a blind spot, so there were no zombies passing by. It wasn't until the surroundings were as quiet as a dead city that I felt that something was wrong. But I would never have thought that we would encounter a Phase 9 zombie, a creature that shouldn't have appeared in the early days of the apocalypse. He actually appeared in front of us, but perhaps it was because of its appearance that I met a group of brothers who fought side by side with me. For us, who were at such low levels, joining hands to fight against a level 9 zombie would require perfect coordination between the four of us. I will never forget the scene of the battle that day. That kind of blood boiling. We defeated the zombie, but the zombie's crystal nucleus directly entered Qing Mian's body. At that time, I felt that something was wrong, and a vague feeling of uneasiness arose in my heart. Little did he know that such a feeling would actually come true. Someone took soft sleep away right in front of us. I used my fastest speed to return to the Qian Mansion and used the CNC Center's equipment to search for Qing Mian's whereabouts. However, I didn't expect that all of this was a trap. Moreover, it was a trap set up by my grandfather himself. When she told me about her conjecture, I wasn't entirely convinced. After all, that was my grandfather who had raised me. How I wished that it was all a misunderstanding. Chapter 2458. Grandfather wanted to kill Qing Mian. No matter what we said, it was useless. He just wanted to kill Qing Mian. I saw how strong she was because I kept giving in. She didn't even care about the survival of this world. She didn't care about the life and death of everyone. But even so, Grandfather still didn't want to let Qing Mian live. He told us an old story about my parents. He didn't come from this world, and I didn't either. I tried hard to make him let go, but I couldn't. But I knew that I had to protect her, protect the people she protected, and protect the brothers who fought side by side with me. One side was my family, and the other side was my lover and friends. You might think that the scales in my heart wavered, but it didn't. It never wavered. Wherever she stood, I would stand. Wherever she died, I would die. But I will not let her die, unless I die. Otherwise, she will certainly live happily. Standing in the center of the star plate was the most difficult moment of my life. I wasn't afraid of death, but I really didn't want to leave her. This feeling was like a whale in the deep sea, making it hard for me to breathe. But I had to make this choice. My death could exchange for her safety and happiness. Such a good thing. Why wouldn't I do it? The light of the stars shone on my face, opening a gap in time and space. The faint light shone on her snow-white face, making her look indescribably beautiful. I didn't know if we could meet again in the next life, but if we could in this life, I was willing to use all my efforts and risk my life to come back. The gap in time and space twisted, returning to the day of the apocalypse. And in this world, it was impossible for the apocalypse to come. The gap in time and space was a hot magma and a cold current. I stood in the center, under the impact of the two forces, looking for the path to her world. The pain wasn't something an ordinary person could bear. But my mind wasn't thinking about the pain, but the passage of time. But fortunately, the balance of luck was on my side again. When I came to this world, it was only the 5th day. I saw her get on a rough car, heading towards my home. On the way, I followed her. I opened the door to my home for her and listened to her grievances. I wanted to hug her and tell her that I was back, but she said that someone had given her a love letter. At that moment, I felt my face darken. My heart felt stuffy, and there was an indescribable feeling. In short, he was unhappy. In short, he was very angry. I decided to show up at our former school as a transfer student tomorrow and see which idiot dared to send her a love letter. Moreover, I can solemnly tell everyone that she is my little wife. That day, it was windy and sunny, and the sky after the storm was as blue as ever. I stood at the door of the class and called her. I heard the sad ringtone. All his anger and unhappiness disappeared. At that moment, he just wanted to hug her and tell her, "I'm back." No matter how difficult it was, at least I used all my strength to return to her side. Actually, the moment I hugged her, I secretly whispered something in her ear. I wanted to keep it in my heart and not tell you people. But all of a sudden, he wanted to express it. I still like you, like a whale breathing gently at the bottom of the sea, extremely infatuated and angry. Chapter 2459. When she opened her eyes, there was a familiar scene and a familiar aura. Welcome, host, back to the chaotic space. I'm back. Luo Qingshun was stunned. Didn't I just kill zombies? Luo Qingshun vaguely remembered a day 10 years after the modern world when the red rain fell from the sky again. It was like the apocalypse had been arranged, arriving on time. When Qian Si Nai opened the space and time track, he only temporarily separated the tracks of time and space. What should come would come. Only this time the apocalypse didn't progress that fast. Although half of the people had become zombies, there was still a group of powerful, superpowered people guarding the world. Of course, the strongest were still the 4 of them. No, to be precise, it should be 5. Mu Jin, coming to the apocalypse again, she was also a power user. The awakened power suited her personality. Healing power, the power by Lian Xin had the chance to awaken back then. In the 10 years of the apocalypse, they established their own safe zone and their own power user army. Qian Si Nai tried to wash away the violent and bloody scenes from her memories the most. But each time, Luo Qingshun would seriously shake her head and say with a smile, "I want to keep the memories of being with you, whether it's good or bad." It was probably because she had a feeling that they would suddenly separate. So, as long as it was a memory of being together, she wanted to keep it all. In the 10 years of the apocalypse, there was killing, blood, and emotions. They loved each other, and they fought each other. Luo Qingshun vaguely remembered that before coming to the chaotic space, they were in the middle of a large-scale battle. But a white light fell from the sky, and Qian Si Nai blocked in front of her. The white light was so dazzling that it swallowed them in an instant. But how did she die? When she had a look of doubt, the system replied to her, "The planet exploded, host." Although the answer left her speechless, she had to accept it. It was a bit regretful, because she couldn't properly say goodbye. "All right, I know. You can continue. The following is a summary of this mission. Host, please properly look over it. Name, Luo Qingshun World. Welcome to the apocalypse. Mission completion rate, 100% currently. There are 4 items in the EXP storage. April 5th Exquisite Ring, 9-section Moon Whip, Phoenix Dance Sword, Universal Medicine Box. Permanent ability, Space and Time Freeze LV5, Upgrade, Permanent ability. Teleportation LV3, Upgrade. Exchange points, 6,000, 1 million cash and Moonlight Cash. Base points, 40. Host 39th mission panel is below. In the next second, the image in the bronze mirror changed. Mission level, A. Experience gained, 500. Female lead. Luo Qingshun male lead. Gong Yubai supporting female lead. Yin Fanfan supporting male lead. Jin Yishuan mission details. Return in 9 months after the death of the female lead and obtain the love of the male lead. Such good looks and figure again. Am I going to be a singer again? MMP. He thought that since the previous plane was so good-looking, it would definitely be a dazzling plane. Who would have thought there would be such a bloody apocalypse? The system was simply slapping her in the face. This time, even though she had asked a question, she wasn't looking forward to it as much. Host, please seriously accept the memories sent by the system. What if there is a pleasant surprise? Are you certain it's a pleasant surprise and not a scare? Chapter 2460. After accepting all the memories, Luo Qingshun felt that this was really a Super Mary Sue story that relied on her absolute advantage to counterattack. Unfortunately, The role of the original host wasn't that Mary Sue, but the so-called Cinderella fairy tale, a veritable little princess. In other words, she had a good appearance, a good status, and a good family background in the TV series. Everything was good, but the male lead didn't love her, the supporting male lead didn't love her, and the person she liked would never like her back. Even if her whole body was shining brightly, it would still be taken away by the powerful Mary Sue halo. Her simple actions would make the male lead and supporting male lead feel that she was special, strong, and kind. But in fact, this kind of person always liked to stand on the moral high ground and say things that sounded self-righteous. The original host's life was ruined by this kind of Mary Sue, because her personality was so selfish in front of the powerful Mary Sue. The original host was the daughter of a city's jewelry tycoon. Her father was the chairman, and her mother was a famous jewelry designer. Because of her family background, the original host was dressed like a little princess and grew up in the spotlight. When she was 17 years old, she quickly became famous and became the best newcomer. Because of her outstanding appearance and top-quality clothes, she was called walking clothes hanger, once in 1,000 years beauty, and the most beautiful newcomer without makeup. Such a smooth, starry road naturally made the original host a little proud, giving people the feeling that she had the temper of a little princess. Therefore, as the original host's fiancé, the supporting male lead Jean Yishuan didn't like the original host. Family power, too married. Jean Yishuan had always been indifferent to the original host. He didn't like this kind of marriage and didn't want to be bound by this kind of marriage. As the successor of the Jean group, he thought he had the right to choose his true love, but this true love was definitely not the original host. The original host liked Jean Yishuan from the first time she saw him when she was young. She was a very stubborn person. If she liked someone, she would continue to like them. Even if this person didn't like her, she would think that as long as she worked hard enough and was good enough, when she shined brightly enough, Jean Yishuan would see her. But she was wrong. No matter how hard she tried, Jean Yishuan couldn't see her. Instead, he saw the supporting female lead Gu Fanfan, a person with an incomparably powerful Mary Sue halo. The Star Sky Group that the previous host signed with was the biggest management company in the entertainment industry. As long as a star entered this company, there was no one who didn't become famous. Perhaps they would lose their popularity with the passage of time, but they must have been popular once. At that time, the original host was very popular. The country's first-tier director, Shao En, decided to remake the novel To Our Pure Youth, published by the popular author Chi-Chi Sleepless, and the host was his only choice for the female lead. After several discussions, the host decided to play the female lead, Xia Chi-Chi. On the day of the audition, there were also auditions for female supporting characters and extras. Since it was a youth blockbuster, the requirements for extras were not low. However, this film was full of big shots, so the young boys and girls who wanted to enter the entertainment industry naturally did not want to miss this opportunity. The supporting female lead, Gu Fanfan, was here to audition for the role of an extra. She didn't know that before she even went on stage for the audition, she had spilled coffee on the expensive coat that the original owner had specially prepared for the audition. The original owner roared, "What are you doing? Watch where you're going." Chapter 2461. Because it was her favorite dress, and it was a gift from Jean Yishuan for her birthday last year, she naturally cherished it. This time, in order to get the role of the first female lead in Youth, she took out the dress that she carefully treasured and wore it. After all, the first male lead of Youth had already been decided. It was the fiancé of the previous host and the supporting male lead in this world, Jean Yishuan. Usually, when she saw it lying quietly in the closet, she felt very happy. But what she didn't know was that this dress wasn't carefully chosen by Jean Yishuan. He had asked his assistant to buy it casually. He didn't even remember what it looked like. Some people's lives were so ironic. What you treasured was worthless in the eyes of others, but the person who treated it as a treasure would always treat it as a treasure. The previous host was sitting in her seat waiting for the audition. She didn't know that a cup of hot coffee fell from the sky and poured directly on her body. A large part of her right wrist was red, but the first thing she did was to protect the clothes that Genie Schwan had given her. Then, she yelled at Gu Fanfan. Her tone was naturally not good. She frowned and scolded the girl in front of her. She was wearing sportswear, 2 ponytails, and an exaggerated headdress. She was also wearing black-rimmed glasses. Gu Fanfan, Gu Fanfan, Gu Fanfan, she really was like her name, extremely ordinary. At the time, the previous host would never have thought that such an ordinary girl would take away the person she wanted the most, and everything she already had because of the powerful Mary Sue halo above her head. Gu Fanfan immediately apologized. She bowed deeply and apologized at a 90-degree angle. Sorry, I'm really sorry. She lowered her head and made circles with her hands in front of her chest. She looked very wronged, which made people feel very sorry for her. Everyone present whispered to each other. Some people even whispered that the previous host had just become famous and was acting like a big shot, bullying the extras. But she was very angry at the time. Was she supposed to accept a cup of hot coffee falling from the sky with a smile? Sorry, someone with her personality couldn't do it. So when she yelled at Gu Fanfan, the image of the so-called strong Mary Sue appeared, upholding, in the face of power, I will not be afraid of anything. With my head held high and my chest puffed out, Mary Sue's strength and bravery is my spirit. An insignificant extra took the risk of losing her role and fearlessly responded to the female lead. I really didn't do it on purpose. You don't have to speak so loudly. Gu Fanfan pursed his lips and looked at Luo Qingchen. I know your clothes are expensive, but that doesn't mean I'm inferior to you. What a strong Mary Sue. Everyone looked at her with admiration, feeling that she lived a very real life. He didn't need to lower himself by flattering others. Genie Schwan, who happened to pass by the audition site, saw this scene. Her strong and brave side made Genie Schwan's eyes light up, and he was moved. He probably admired this kind of girl. She was plain and simple. She could apologize right away, but under the other party's angry roar, she didn't back down. Immediately, he walked forward and stood beside Gu Fanfan like a knight to help her out of this predicament. Although the original owner was still very angry, Genie Schwan personally spoke up for Gu Fanfan, so she couldn't say anything. Chapter 2462. The previous host would never have thought that after angrily leaving the audition, she would miss out on the role of the female lead in Youth. She was just really angry. Even if Gu Fanfan didn't do it on purpose, it was something she treasured. Actually, she didn't ask her to pay, she just couldn't smile and say it was fine. If it was just a scald a hand, she probably wouldn't even bother with Gu Fanfan. She admitted that she had a proud personality, but that didn't mean she was unreasonable. But Mary Sue girls would always think that the noble miss was trying to embarrass her. This was because this type of person always stood on the moral high ground. They believed that the noble daughter was deliberately bullying her so that she would be in a superior position. They didn't think that the noble miss had anything precious. In their eyes, the noble miss was rich and they could just buy another one. Although Mary Sue girls didn't have money, they could work hard to pay back. However, these people would never know that if you were a little more careful, a little more observant, and didn't pour scalding hot coffee on others, no one would have the time to target you, okay? For Gu Fanfan, her thoughts were, I already apologized. I can pay for your clothes. I can pay for your medical expenses. I can earn money myself. What else do you want me to do? Yes, the previous host couldn't do anything to her. So when the director of Youth decided to listen to Genie Schwan and boldly use the newcomer Gu Fanfan, the previous host was stunned on one hand. She blamed herself for missing the audition because of her pride. On the other hand, she hated Gu Fanfan even more. If Gu Fanfan didn't pour the coffee on her, she wouldn't have left the audition because she was angry. So when Gu Fanfan entered Starlight Group, she hated her the most. The previous host was someone who hated evil and had a straightforward personality. There were many ways to express her hatred, but the previous host liked to use the simplest and most direct way. But she didn't know that the powerful aura of a Mary Sue was pushing her step by step into the endless darkness. Every time the previous host and Gu Fanfan confronted each other, It was the medium that warmed up the relationship between Gu Fanfan and Genie Xuan. Although there were many people in Starlight Group who didn't like Gu Fanfan, she had no background, no status, and no power. Even if she dressed up, she was still a far cry from the beautiful female stars. But ever since Youth started filming, Genie Xuan had been protecting her, although she often told Genie Xuan that they weren't from the same world. But Genie Xuan was a very persistent person. He liked what he liked. The more Gu Fanfan rejected him, the more agitated the feeling of not being able to get what he wanted was in the depths of his heart. In Youth, the male and female leads had a lot of kissing scenes. Every time the director yelled "cut," Genie Xuan would forcefully kiss a few more times. Although this seemed more realistic in the world of Youth, it was too greasy. But in Gu Fanfan's eyes, she seemed to gradually fall in love with Genie Xuan every time he tried to woo her. In the beginning, she even felt uneasy because she had stolen the female lead role from the original owner. In the end, she felt that she had earned it through her own hard work. Chapter 2463. If it wasn't for Genie Xuan's strong recommendation. Plus, Gu Fanfan's good friend, Yi Su, had helped. Even if the original host wasn't cast as Xia Qiqi, Gu Fanfan wouldn't have had a chance. Speaking of Yi Su, she was the Mary Sue of the entire world. She was her best friend. Because they were neighbors and played together since they were young, Yi Su saw Gu Fanfan as a girl with good morals and integrity. She thought that this kind of girl was very good. Compared to the daughters of rich families, like the original host, she was much better. Yi Su wasn't rich, but because she didn't go to university, she started working early. She studied management for 2 years and entered Star Sky Group as an agent. Of course, in the beginning, she was only an assistant. Fortunately, she worked hard and had several abilities after she became an official employee. Although they didn't become popular as soon as they debuted like the original owner and Genie Xuan, their development wasn't bad. Because one of the artists was the female lead of Youth TV series director Xiao An's previous film. Xiao came to let her choose a suitable candidate. Because she knew that her best friend, Gu Fanfan, was going to audition, she agreed to Xiao An's invitation. Originally, she just wanted to help Gu Fanfan get a supporting role, but she didn't expect such a good opportunity to fall from the sky. Actually, perhaps the original host didn't know why Xiao An replaced her overnight when he thought she was the only candidate for Xia Qiqi. The reason was simple. The scene where Gu Fanfan accidentally spilled coffee on the body of the original owner of the body happened to be the same scene that appeared in the novel Youth. And what Gu Fanfan did was exactly what the female lead of Youth, Xia Qiqi, did. Genie Xuan's recommendation and Yi Su's approval made Xiao An believe that he had found the real Xia Qiqi. Even if this person didn't have fans, traffic, or popularity, he believed that he could make her famous through Youth. Moreover, there was the popular Genie Xuan who could create scandals. He wasn't even afraid that Gu Fanfan wouldn't be famous. Some people were happy, while others were sad. When the original host lost the role of Xia Qiqi, she couldn't come back to her senses. Moreover, Gu Fanfan entered Starry Sky so smoothly, and her fiancé treated her like a completely different person. She became anxious every day, and not long after, she suffered from depression. Most stars more or less have this kind of illness, but because the original owner involved personal feelings, this kind of depression made her gradually lose confidence. In fact, she had been approached with very good scripts, but she had rejected them all. She was a very serious person when it came to relationships. When she liked Genie Xuan, she liked him from head to toe. When she saw him being with someone else and being gentle to someone else, she felt suffocated. She was so outstanding and worked so hard to be by his side, but she was still not as strong as his so-called strong Cinderella. During that period of time, she was particularly closed off. Drink, smoke, and indulge yourself. But as a celebrity, as long as one bad thing appeared in front of the audience, all the previous efforts would go down the drain. What's more, the original host was a youthful jade girl in the eyes of the audience. Chapter 2464. Reality proved that this was the cruel entertainment industry. It could make you famous overnight and make you feel the joy of being in the palm of everyone's hand. It could also make you fall to pieces overnight. A few months later, the host gradually faded out of the entertainment industry. She knew that she didn't lose to a role, but to Jeannie Schwan. Because she liked him, she became humble. She hated Gu Fanfan to the core, but what was the use? That girl with the halo of Mary Sue. Every time she met with trouble, there would be a knight who loved her to protect her. She didn't need to do bad things because she was lucky enough. But the host didn't have such luck. Every time she went to the company, she could see Jean Yishuan trying to please Gu Fanfan. Yisu also kept helping him. Even if Youth hadn't aired yet, the official couple of Jean Yishuan and Gu Fanfan was already deeply rooted in people's hearts. Because of the promotion of the TV series and Jean Yishuan's bold confession, many fans became fans of this couple. They even named them the Fanxian couple. The slogan was, "Not willing to be ordinary, impressive." The host could accept giving the role of Xia Qi to someone else, but she couldn't give Jean Yishuan to someone else. Her stubborn personality made her announce to everyone at the press conference of Youth that she was Jean Yishuan's fiancée and Gu Fanfan was just a third party. However, how could Jean Yishuan, who had been blinded by love, let the host bully the person he loved the most? At the press conference, Jean Yishuan took Gu Fanfan into his arms and announced to everyone that Gu Fanfan was the woman he loved the most. For a time, the original owner was overwhelmed by the overwhelming rumors and slanders. The third party wants to jump on top of the main character. Stand there and don't hit the face. What a slap to the face. She's really an evil female supporting character in a TV series. A kind person will always be seen by the prince. Fanxian couple forever. They would never know that it was the last straw that broke the host back. The host position was taken away by them, but the halo of Mary Sue wasn't just like that. Gu Fanfan not only used his own halo to take away the original owner's job, status, but also the original owner's mother. It turned out that Gu Fan was the daughter of the original owner's mother and his childhood sweetheart. However, because that man was addicted to gambling, he owed a loan shark and was imprisoned. She had no choice but to marry Luo Xiao, who had pursued her back then. Luo Xiao was very good to her, so she doted on the original owner even more. However, the original owner's mother, Yi Xiao, felt guilty towards Gu Fanfan, so after knowing that she was her daughter, she wanted Gu Fanfan to enter the Luo family. Luo Xiao loved his wife. Although Luo Qingchun was unhappy, he still agreed to Yi Xiao's request. The girl who had stolen everything from her had entered the house. Naturally, the original host could not accept it. The anger that had accumulated in her heart for a long time exploded at this moment. She immediately stabbed Gu Fanfan with the dagger. Gu Fanfan did not die, but she was in prison. In fact, the moment she picked up the knife and stabbed Gu Fanfan, she no longer cared about her own life. To her, everything seemed to be meaningless. She didn't cry when she was put in prison, but Luo Xiao was crying. He felt that he had let down his daughter, the daughter that he had been reluctant to hit and scold since she was young. In the memory of the original host, this was the most touching conversation. Chapter 2465. The previous host would never be able to forget the face of her father, who had always been imposing, as he cried. She didn't cry, but her heart was bleeding. It was probably because of this father that she regretted falling in love with Jean Yishuan. The previous host, who was standing at the entrance of the prison, kept telling herself that she still had a chance. If she got out of prison, she would definitely start her life all over again. She wouldn't care about other people's opinions. She wouldn't care anymore. She was a pampered young lady, yet she still wanted to continue living under such circumstances, because there was still a father in this world who loved her. She wanted to live for her father, but unfortunately, the heavens didn't give her this chance. Because she didn't have the Mary Sue halo of the female lead, even if she went to prison, the heavens wouldn't let her have an easy time. She met Gu Fanfan's father, Gu Meng, in prison. That crazy man knew that the previous host had stabbed his own daughter, so he directly took the previous host's innocence in prison. He was a big boss who had been in prison for more than 10 years. so he naturally didn't fear doing this. Many of his subordinates took the blame for him, so he was still able to get out of prison after a month. But the previous host clenched her teeth and persevered in prison. Even if she was ravaged by countless dirty people, she still clenched her teeth and didn't say a word. It was so that after 3 months in prison, her father would be able to come and see her. She wanted to see him again and tell him that if there was a next life, she still wanted to be his daughter. This was the only person she wanted to protect in this world. Unfortunately, she couldn't protect him anymore. After 3 months in prison, she finally had a chance to visit. The previous host tidied herself up and saw her father at the entrance of the prison. The man who had always protected her since she was young, who always had broad shoulders. When they met again, his face was filled with age. She smiled, smiling so happily. Before she died, she could see her father one more time. She felt that it was enough, and it was worth it. That night, the previous host used the cloth rope she had prepared to commit suicide. It wasn't that she couldn't wait until she got out of prison, but she couldn't stand her innocence. After all, she used to be such an honorable person. It took some time for her to accept the previous host's memories. It was really a very sad story. Perhaps she was a little spoiled, or perhaps she had a bit of a temper. But at the very least, she hadn't harmed a single person from start to finish. It was precisely because she didn't have the so-called Mary Sue halo above her head that she was about to be robbed of everything she once had. On what basis? Luo Qingshun couldn't help but ask in her heart, why? The host can watch the story of the original host's death in another parallel universe. Okay. Another memory flooded into his mind. It was the discovery of the story after the death of the original owner. After the TV series Youth was released, it did not receive unanimous praise. However, due to the hype of Gu Fanfan and Genie Xuan's coupling, the ratings still exceeded 1%. Gu Fanfan's father, Gu Ming, was released from prison. The death of the original owner had no effect on him. After being released from prison, he went to look for the mother of the original owner, and also Gu Fanfan's mother, Yi Xiao. Gu Ming took advantage of the fact that the original owner's father, Luo Xiao, was dispirited and poisoned him to death. The original owner's mother didn't know about this. Gu Ming was very careful. In the end, the police didn't suspect him. After Luo Xiao's death, Gu Ming took over the Luo family's property. Because of his violent nature, even if he was with Yi Xiao again, his personality didn't change. He hit and scolded her. Chapter 2466. Gu Fanfan's path to stardom was smooth, but once a person reached a certain height, they would change. This included her love for Jin Yixian. Because of the film, she fell in love with the male lead of another youth film and declared that she was just grateful to Jin Yixian. It wasn't love. That's right. How could a Mary Sue cheat? After Jin Yixian learned of this, his heart felt very uncomfortable, and he also felt a bit of regret. If back then, he didn't stubbornly stay with Gu Fanfan, he and Luo Qingshun. But it was too late. When he thought of Luo Qingshun, she had already turned into bones and was buried in the South Mountains. Dash understood. Luo Qingshun muttered to herself before saying with a cold smile, the people who lived the best in the end were Gu Fanfan and her father. Yes, 7 months ago, the previous host had just left the audition for Youth. Why did her heart tremble when she heard the system's casual words? Damn, are you sure you aren't teasing me? Is the Mary Sue halo this strong? Shouldn't it be that if I returned to the audition, the difficulty of this mission would be a bit lower? What can you do? This is the system's fault. The host can choose to return to the audition center. Not going. This kind of thing that doesn't belong to this treasure doesn't need it. A proud young lady should act like a proud young lady. A Cinderella who thought she had the Mary Sue halo. The things you cherish doesn't mean this treasure will cherish them. Not to mention that Genie Xian was just a supporting male lead. Even if he was the male lead, she didn't want him in this world. How can the host not want the male lead? I'm just giving an example. You didn't even tell me who the male lead was, all right? Can't her male lead, Mr. come out to protect her? She suddenly missed Qian Sinai a bit. That kind of male lead who had the ability to insult supporting female leads. Couldn't he be too handsome? Why does the host have no impression of the male lead? Although the previous host didn't know the male lead, the world knows the male lead. World? Luo Qingchun knit her brows and went through the previous host's memories again. Gong Yu Bai, Gong Yu Bai, Gong Yu Bai. Why did these three words sound so familiar? Her memory lingered on the image of the Golden Horse Best Actor award winner. The young man, who was only in his early 20s, calmly received the trophy and said a few words of thanks. Countless applause rang out, but at that time, Gong Yu Bai had only filmed one movie. What's more, he was the male lead of a disaster movie, Apocalypse 2250. He was the savior of the world when the zombies came. A superpowered person with two superpowers. Such a movie broke the 8 billion yuan box office. Gong Yu Bai had transformed from a youth that no one cared about into the nation's Prince Charming. Almost everyone liked him. No one disliked him. In addition, Gong Yu Bai was extremely cold and aloof. Not to mention kissing scenes. Other than Apocalypse 2250, he rejected all romance movies. His aloofness was a kind of aloofness that took away his politeness and elegance. Not only did he have zero scandals, but he was also known as an abstinent Prince Charming. After returning home, Luo Qingchun seriously searched for information about Gong Yu Bai on Baidu. He seemed to be very mysterious, and his background was blank. To be honest, just based on this information and character, even if she hadn't seen Gong Yu Bai before, her affection for him was still increasing. Damn, the male lead was so handsome. Did the previous host's eyes get hit by a car? Wait a minute. Apocalypse 2250, Chapter 2467. Of course not. Then wasn't the coincidence a bit too obvious? Shouldn't the original owner be concerned about how to get back the script of youth? Luo Qingchun was silent for a while before replying. Why were youth movies all about abortion, cheating, suicide, and deep greasy kisses? Chi-Chi's writing was very good, but she didn't seem to like the Xia Chi-Chi she wrote. Perhaps it was because Xia Chi-Chi had a Mary Sue halo above her head. Whenever she encountered a problem, there would always be someone to help her solve it. She really didn't like this kind of character. Of course, the most important reason why she wasn't prepared to fight for this role was because the supporting male lead was Jin Yishuan. Scumbag. And so many kissing scenes. He didn't even want to borrow from you, okay? Luo Qingchun was browsing the web when a message suddenly popped up. The female lead of To Our Simple Youth is confirmed to be played by an outsider, Gu Fanfan. The male lead, Jin Yishuan, strongly recommends. Please look forward to it. Gu Fanfan's makeup photo. JPG, tisk tisk tisk. Luo Qingchun, who was sitting in front of the computer, snorted and muttered, quite fast. The photo is a bit ugly. The press release was very simple. Most of the reason was because Gu Fanfan wasn't popular and there wasn't much to introduce the female lead. However, this simple press release caused a lot of comments from the public, causing an uproar in an instant. In fact, the original owner's personality was quite arrogant. She almost never looked at the comments on the internet. Luo Qingchun felt that if she looked at those comments, perhaps she wouldn't have gotten depression and wouldn't have walked on such a tragic path. Luo Qingchun scrolled down and seriously looked at the comments on the first few pages. Tiny Meatball's cuteness. What the hell? Why isn't it me cheating? Wind. Haha, can this be the female lead? Is there something wrong with her brain? Goodbye scenery. I'm dying of laughter. Jin Yishuan strongly recommended? XX deal? So ugly and strongly recommended? Before, he said that he and I-Ching were engaged. Could it be that he had an affair? Jin Yishuan's fangirl. I can understand why the person above said it's a new female lead. But you're going overboard with me. Chuan's fans, yes. But that girl is really a bit too ordinary. Jin Yishuan's fangirl, not bad. She could still be considered pure. Light shimmer, please. How could she be the female lead? Then I can go to the international beauty contest? Okay. Scrolling down, almost all the comments are on Luo Qingchun's side. After all, at this moment, Luo Qingchun was a popular starlet, while Gu Fanfan was nothing. Just as she was deep in thought, her phone rang. The caller ID showed that it was her manager, Sister Me. In her memory, when the original owner saw this phone call, she chose to directly hang up. In that case, since he wanted to change the ending, some things had to be changed from small things. Hello. She picked up the phone, and the other party apologized anxiously. Chinga, I'm really sorry. I didn't go to the audition with you today because I brought another artist to the filming location. I'll go negotiate with them. Don't worry. Luo Qingchun chuckled and interrupted her. It's okay. There's no need to negotiate. I don't want that role anymore. Sister Me on the other side of the phone froze. The original owner's previous manager was Yi Su. Later, because Yi Su didn't like people, she replaced her. The original owner didn't care much about managers, so she chose Sister Me was only a third-rate manager. Chapter 2468. You don't want it anymore? Sister Me's voice sounded a little dejected. After all, this novel was very popular. If Luo Qingchun could get the female lead, coupled with the scandal with Jin Yixuan, it would definitely cause a lot of discussion. This time, it was indeed her mistake. She didn't expect that the role that she was so sure to get would be snatched away by a nobody. Luo Qingchun's reply was very decisive. At the same time, her gaze was fixed on Gong Yubai's photo on the computer screen. Then she said faintly, "Help me investigate Gong Yubai's flight." What? Imperial God? Sister Me was obviously very surprised. After all, Gong Yubai was a godlike existence in the entertainment industry. Not to mention a female star like Luo Qingchun who had just become popular. Even a famous movie queen couldn't hit on him. He was a man of abstinence. Strangers should not get close to him. Whether it was the hype or Gong Yubai's reputation, it was like this. In short, his image in the hearts of his fans was perfect. In other words, no matter who was involved in a scandal with such a person, it would create explosive news and quickly become popular. Of course, Luo Qingchun very seriously expressed that she wanted Gong Yubai's schedule, not to rely on him to rise up. After all, the male lead was so cold. If she didn't create a chance encounter, they would never be able to interact. Qing'a, are you sure you want Gong Yubai's schedule? Sister Me said with some worry. He's not easy to get close to. Now that Luo Qingchun didn't get the female lead of Youth, if she forcefully got close to Gong Yubai and caused bad news, it would cause countless fans of Imperial God to attack her. Wouldn't that be a loss? Don't worry, I have my ways. Luo Qingchun narrowed her eyes and smiled. You just need to help me get Gong Yubai's schedule for this week. It had been a long time since she stood in such a pure position to capture a male god. For her, this was even more challenging. Okay, when do you need it? As soon as possible. Early the next morning, Luo Qingchun received an email from Sister Me inside, was Gong Yubai's schedule. She had to admit that he was probably the most idle artist she had ever seen. For the entire week, he only had one flight, and the destination was the South Pole. Antarctica? Do you want to read penguins? What was wrong with his brain? Not only did he reject the endorsement of a luxury bus, but he also rejected the invitation to a TV series. Instead, he went to the South Pole to see penguins. Are you kidding me? She quickly replied to Sister Me's email and asked her to prepare the plane tickets. It was good to go to Antarctica. At least there should not be many fans at the airport. This way, it would not be easy to expose her identity. In addition, in order to capture the Prince Charming, she was fearless. Why would she care about going to the South Pole? Host, are you really fearless? I was just casually mentioning it. How could you be so gullible? Since the flight was tomorrow, he had to make a trip to Starlight today. In Luo Qingchun's eyes, the original owner should climb up for where she fell. Running away would never solve the problem. Since Jin Yixuan's eyes had been shot by a truck, he chose a girl like Gu Fanfan. In that case, she couldn't show that she was in dire straits. Moreover, would she, Luo Qingchun, be in dire straits? What kind of joke was this? Did he want to show off his love in front of her to attract attention? Chapter 2469. In front of the mirror, she chose a Givenchy Winter Limited Edition jacket, Cartier jewelry, exquisite makeup, and the LV bag that suited her temperament the most. Everything was ready. At 9 o'clock sharp, she left on time. Because it was an agency, there weren't many people in the company during working hours. Even if they weren't staying up late to film, they were recording a show. The world of stars wasn't as easy as normal people thought. Under the spotlight, there were many people who worked hard that others didn't know about. Of course, people with a Mary Sue halo were an exception. Even if the original owner had such a prominent family background, she had to rely on her own efforts to climb up step by step to get to where she was today. She was someone with acting skills and worked hard. It was probably because she knew the previous host's hard work that in this world, Luo Qingshun looked down on people with a Mary Sue halo. In their world, 20% relied on hard work and 80% relied on luck. Whenever there was trouble, there would always be 1, 2, 3, 4 who would protect them by her side. Men would always fall in love with her, and women would always appreciate her. Compared to this kind of life, Luo Qingshun wanted to be like the previous host more. Perhaps she would also be selfish and angry. But at least she did a lot of things based on her own hard work, so she was open and honest. After parking the Maserati, she came up from the B2 elevator. The elevator slowly stopped on the first floor. The moment she opened the door, she saw Jin Yixuan standing outside. Yo! It was really a case of enemies meeting on a daily basis. She hadn't thought about how to appear yet when she met Jin Yixuan, but it was also good. She was very satisfied with her outfit today. Large black sunglasses covered most of her face, and her expression couldn't be seen. Her lips were flaming and looked noble and cold. The moment Jin Yixuan saw her, his indifferent expression instantly became cold. In the past, the previous host would put down her status as a rich young miss and take his hand, gently talking to him. Even if she was met with a cold rejection, she would never back down. In her eyes, Jin Yixuan was her everything, everything, everything. Jin Yixuan seemed to stop in place for a while. It was an action to keep a distance. Luo Qingshun gave a cold snort. In the moment he hesitated, she did something very decisive. She walked forward expressionlessly and slowly took out her red coat with her right hand. Her delicate fingertips pressed the elevator button. Close the door. In the next second, the elevator door slowly closed. Luo Qingshun put her hands back into her pockets and looked up indifferently. Through her large sunglasses, she looked at Jin Yixuan outside the elevator. Jin Yixuan was almost completely stunned on the spot. This feeling was no less than a mother who had always doted on you, suddenly giving your favorite steamed bun to air mound next door. The contrast was the most unacceptable feeling for a man. In the past, whenever Luo Qingshun saw him, she would rush forward excitedly and chirp in his ear. Her voice was pleasant to the ears, but he found it annoying. He was even annoyed by the faint perfume on her body. This was a feeling that could only be felt when a person was bored to the bone. But today, Luo Qingshun had changed. Playing hard to get? He didn't know. But he still came back to his senses and pressed the elevator button again. When the elevator door opened again, Luo Qingshun was already lazily leaning against the handrail. Chapter 2470. Looking at each other in silence was the most fatal. Luo Qingshun didn't speak, and Jin Yixuan didn't know what to say. This kind of atmosphere exuded a thick atmosphere of awkwardness. Jin Yixuan frowned and pretended not to care as he pressed the elevator button. He really pretended not to care. This was the first time in his life that he had this kind of feeling. It was as if there were countless ants crawling in his heart, and it was especially unbearable. Unbeknownst to him, the elevator door opened again 3 seconds later while he was so anxious. Standing at the elevator door was Gu Fanfan, who was dressed up but still gave off a slightly rustic feeling. It wasn't that Luo Qingshun was slandering her. Starry Sky Management Company was the largest management company in the country, and any of its artists looked good. Gu Fanfan was really too ordinary, and there was no professional stylist to design her style. It was a bit far-fetched to want to be a star just by putting on some powder, lipstick, and a dress that didn't fit in. Sorry. She habitually bowed her head and apologized. When she saw Jin Yixuan, there was a smile on her face. She was originally only qualified to be an extra, but suddenly became the female lead. If it wasn't for Jin Yixuan, she wouldn't have had this opportunity. In the face of such a noble, coupled with the fact that he was so handsome, it was hard not to like him. It's okay. Jin Yixuan chuckled and said, "There's no one." Now, Luo Qingshun, who was innermost, chuckled in her heart. This Jean Yixuan was really hard to like. Gu Fanfan pursed her lips, crossed her hands in front of her chest, and said softly, "Am I not dressed formally enough? Yisu said there was a meeting today, and I don't know how to dress up." Jean Yixuan saw her careful look and couldn't help but feel pity. Such a kind girl had an inexplicable aura that attracted him. However, this light was much dimmer than yesterday. He didn't know why it was so dim, but he always felt that there was a dazzling light in a corner of the elevator that kept emitting. "It's okay." Jean Yixuan shook his head again and looked at Luo Qingshun from the corner of his eyes. He wanted to get her attention, but said in a somewhat mocking tone, "Things like stars are all the same after packaging." "Really?" Gu Fanfan immediately responded to Jean Yixuan's words, but Luo Qingshun still had her hands in her pockets and did not say a word. If it was the previous host personality, she would have proudly replied, "Not everyone can be a star, okay?" Moreover, Gu Fanfan had snatched away her role as the first female lead of Youth, so she shouldn't like her. According to her understanding of the original owner, even if she was playing hard to get before, she wouldn't be able to bear it now. But he didn't expect that she still didn't say a word. "What's wrong with Luo Qingshun today? Is she angry at me because I didn't get the female lead role of Youth?" Ha ha ha. This was also good. This way, he could find a suitable time to break off the engagement. "Mr. Jean, did I ask a childish question?" Gu Fanfan was a little embarrassed and looked away. His eyes fell on Luo Qingshun, who had been standing in the corner. "No, I just haven't figured out how to reply yet." Chapter 2471. Silence, silence, silence. After Gu Fanfan said this, the entire elevator fell into dead silence. She hesitated and interrupted Jean Yixuan's original words. Jean Yixuan didn't know what to say. As for Luo Qingshun, she held the attitude of, "I won't say a word to you guys, so what?" and didn't speak. She knew very well that the more she didn't speak, the more awkward Jean Yixuan and Gu Fanfan would be in the elevator. Gu Fanfan obviously felt the awkwardness of the atmosphere. She pursed her lips and looked at Luo Qingshun with some embarrassment. "Yesterday when we had coffee, I actually apologized to you. Although you didn't accept it, I couldn't do anything about it. But regarding the role, I didn't mean to steal your first female lead role." The moment Gu Fanfan finished speaking, Luo Qingshun called her System. "System, you decided that this is Mary Sue, not the little white flower. This was simply forcing the blame, okay? Has the Mary Sue merged with the little white flower now? How could she say such shameless words without blushing, without panting, and without her heart beating faster? Although the System also thinks that she's shameless, she said these words from the bottom of her heart. Saying it from the bottom of her heart was scary, okay? Standing on the moral high ground and saying such high-sounding words, didn't she feel disgusted? Of course, Luo Qingshun held the "I won't speak" mentality. Although she wanted to refute, she still didn't speak, because she knew that refuting back wouldn't be as effective as not speaking. Because as long as you didn't speak, the other party had no reason to splash dirty water on you. Unless he really wanted to be humiliated by her. In just a few seconds, the atmosphere in the elevator was extremely awkward. This kind of awkward atmosphere was a kind of torture for both Gu Fanfan and Jean Yixuan. But for Luo Qingshun, she felt like she was watching a show through her sunglasses. After 6 seconds of silence, Jean Yixuan still opened his mouth. "Qingshun, Fanfan is asking you." Jean Yixuan said, "As a senior, don't you want to teach her a thing or two? TSK, TSK, TSK. Shameless people are invincible." Before Jean Yixuan said this sentence, Luo Qingshun at most thought that he was a scumbag who liked Mary Sue. But when he said that, Luo Qingshun felt that there was something wrong with his character. Logically speaking, as her fiancé, the two of them should have received the same audition. Moreover, he had already confirmed that he would be the male lead, and she was also auditioning for the female lead. Little did he know that after the accident happened, the first thing he thought of was to replace him instead of helping him fight for the role. But that was not the most important thing. The most importantly, he actually had the face to ask her, as a senior, to teach him a thing or two. Either there was a problem with his character, or there was something wrong with his brain. The next second, Luo Qingshun pushed up her sunglasses and glanced at the floor number of the elevator. Second floor. With a ding sound, the elevator door opened. Luo Qingshun narrowed her cold eyes and walked toward the elevator door without looking back. That kind of momentum really trampled Jin Yishuan's face under her feet. Trampled. She really didn't give him any face at all. On the way to the office, Luo Qingshun was in a very good mood. Although she didn't say a word in the elevator, she knew that she must have angered Jin Yishuan half to death. At the same time, she must have embarrassed Gu Fanfan. Sometimes, the effect of a harsh retort was never as lethal as silence. Chapter 2472. The biggest reason why she could anger Jin Yishuan was because of her contrast. After all, the previous owner had never treated Jin Yishuan like this. This contrast was the best. In the office, she was still flipping through Gong Yubai's information. He was really a mysterious person, and he was really handsome. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. Luo Qingshun looked up slightly. It was her manager, Sister Mi, who opened the door. What's wrong, Sister Mi? Luo Qingshun smiled and said, Did Fei Fei's filming go smoothly yesterday? Lan Fei Fei was the artist who accompanied Sister Mi to the filming yesterday. She had been the second female lead for 10,000 years, but she had never had a scandal. It went smoothly. Sister Mi nodded as she took out a stack of documents and placed them in front of her. After calling you yesterday, I've been feeling bad. I suggested a few big directors and arranged a few auditions for you. Luo Qingshun glanced at the blue folder. Looking at the thickness, there were at least a dozen films. Actually, the previous owner was really popular. Even if she didn't have the opportunity to be the female lead of Youth, she was still a popular young actress. If she hadn't fallen because of Jin Yishuan, her position in the entertainment industry would have been something that Gu Fanfan would never dare to not. Thank you, Sister Mi. Luo Qingshun chuckled and said, I'll take a good look. Don't blame yourself. If it's mine, it's mine. If it's not mine, it's not mine. This kind of thing can't be forced. Sister Mi was stunned when she heard this. It wasn't her first day with Luo Qingshun. Naturally, she knew that her temper wasn't very good. In addition, she and Jin Yishuan were engaged. In her world, Jin Yishuan had always been her weak spot. If it was in the past, she would have made a big fuss. But today, why was she so indifferent? Then you and Yishuan. Sister Mi asked with concern, Did you fight? Fight? Luo Qingshun's eyebrows trembled slightly. She replied very casually, We broke up. Hiss! Sister Mi sucked in a breath of cold air. At the same time, the door of Luo Qingshun's office was opened. The person who walked in was Jin Yishuan, who was very polite in the eyes of outsiders. Unfortunately, Jin Yishuan didn't like the original owner, so when he entered her office, he never knocked. Yishuan. Sister Mi was the first to greet him. Jin Yishuan nodded lightly, and his gaze fell on Luo Qingshun. Director Xiao would like to invite you over. He was a little embarrassed during the audition yesterday. The second female lead for Youth has not been confirmed yet. Come over. It was a completely commanding tone. Luo Qingshun expressed that she couldn't hear the slightest inquiry. Jin Yishuan put his hands in his pockets. He suddenly felt uncomfortable in this office that he used to hate. Luo Qingshun was suddenly absent from Youth, and there was a lot of criticism online. In addition, Gu Fanfan himself was not a graduate, so his identity was even more awkward. There was never a lack of keyboard warriors on the internet. Those people even said that Gu Fanfan slept with the director to get the chance. After Gu Fanfan found out about these rumors, he cried silently for a long time. When he saw it, his heart inexplicably ached for such a girl. She had worked so hard to get the role, but it was ruined because of the keyboard warrior. Director Zhao's suggestion was that it was best to have Luo Qingshun appear in Youth. If it was the second female lead, although the popularity would decrease, it could be understood as supporting a newcomer. The keyboard warrior would also restrain himself. The director naturally knew about the relationship between Jin Yishuan and Luo Qingshun. It was a difficult thing to talk about, so it should be easier for Jin Yishuan to say it. Chapter 2473. Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes and leaned against the sofa. Her right fingertips habitually tapped on the table. A sharp light flashed in her eyes as she looked at Jeannie Schwan and said, "What makes you think that I will accept the role of the second female lead?" In fact, she could see that Jeannie Schwan's face was full of confidence. He thought that Luo Qingshun would definitely agree to his request. Ridiculous, really ridiculous. Luo Qingshun's rhetorical question filled the air with an awkward atmosphere. Sister Mi did not dare to speak. After all, she had not recovered from Luo Qingshun's words, "We broke up." Jeannie Schwan heard this and obviously felt particularly embarrassed. Since the moment he met Luo Qingshun, she had never refused any of his requests. It was probably because of this that her abnormal behavior today not only made him feel embarrassed, but also made him feel a little angry. This is a good opportunity. Jeannie Schwan pulled his bow tie and looked at her with an indifferent expression. If I miss this opportunity, my schedule will be basically full. I won't have a chance in the next few years. Whether it was playing hard to get or trying to get his attention in another way, he did not have time to beat around the bush with her. Luo Qingshun liked him. He was confident in this. If she knew that he didn't have any free time, she would definitely cherish this chance to film with him. She could only play the second female lead, but the identity of the second female lead was actually very suitable for her. For love, she could not ask for it. "Mr. Jean, it seems that you have not figured out the situation." Luo Qingshun sneered and gently picked up the folder on the table. "There are more than 20 high-quality scripts waiting for me to play the female lead. May I ask, what makes you think that I will be willing to play a supporting role?" The three words, "Mr. Jean," at the beginning had completely defined the relationship between her and him. Jeannie Schwan did not come back to his senses at all. He was almost a little dumbfounded. It was not until a few seconds later that he raised his eyebrows and asked, "Don't you want to film with me?" "I don't want to." As soon as his voice fell, Luo Qingshun gave him a firm answer. "Luo Qingshun." Jeannie Schwan's head buzzed. He had a feeling that his brain was on fire. He immediately forced himself to calm down. He sneered and said softly, "Don't you think it's very old-fashioned to play hard to get? Don't you think it's annoying to hear you blabber on and on?" It was definitely a rhyme, and it was a completely offensive reply. Sister Mi saw that the atmosphere was a little off and quickly came out to smooth things over. Don't quarrel. We're all family. What's there to quarrel about?" "Sister Mi, have you forgotten what I just said to you?" Luo Qingshun crossed her arms and raised her eyebrows arrogantly. She smiled and said, "We broke up. Once upon a time, in Jeannie Schwan's world, how he wished that Luo Qingshun, his fiancé, did not exist. But now, why did she feel so uncomfortable when she was told to break up? Did you take the wrong medicine?" Jeannie Schwan narrowed his eyes and looked at her coldly. "Just because of her role, the word breakup is always on the tip of your tongue?" "Oh," Luo Qingshun sneered and replied, "could it be that Mr. Jean wants to grow old with me, a match made in heaven, and turn into a pair of mandarin ducks flying side by side?" Jean Yishuan froze for a moment. Listening to Luo Qingshun's sudden change in style, he felt a little scared. Chapter 2474. We are indeed not suitable for each other. Jeannie Schwan took a deep breath and looked at her. "But this has nothing to do with whether you want to act in youth or not. Gu Fan is still a newcomer. If you can make him popular, it will naturally be good." "Jeannie Schwan, are you out of your mind?" Luo Qingshun simply couldn't understand this kind of self-centered man who stood on the moral high ground to demand others. His face was full of one word: annoying. "What did you say?" Jeannie Schwan obviously didn't expect Luo Qingshun to scold him like this. After all, she had always been gentle to him before. Sometimes, even if she was unhappy, in order to cater to him, she would put away her princess temper. Today, why was she a different person today? If you were in a TV series and the role of the male lead was taken away by someone else, would you still play the supporting role for the second male lead? Luo Qingshun sneered, and her powerful words directly hit Jean Yishuan's heart. Jean Yishuan slightly clenched his fists in his trouser pockets, and his face was a little red. Obviously, he was a little angry by Luo Qingshun's words. When he couldn't confront her directly, it was very ungentlemanly. "Helping the company's newcomers is something I should do. Miss Luo, don't you think so? Although he didn't directly confront her, he used the words Miss Luo to express his attitude. He didn't like Luo Qingchen. Since she wanted to draw a line with him, why not take this opportunity? Right? Luo Qingchen gently clapped her hands and looked at him. Then you give up the position of the male lead and play the supporting role. What do you think? Oh. Helping the newcomers, you don't care whether it's the male lead or the supporting role, right? Luo Qingchen, don't go too far. We don't have to ask you to play the supporting role. Genie Xuan was obviously angry. Even his tone changed a little, and he couldn't maintain his elegant image. Since it was like this, why would Luo Qingchen give him face? Oh, then get out. These 4 simple words were absolutely concise and comprehensive. She could even feel the fire in Genie Xuan's eyes, as well as the disbelief in his eyes. Good. Don't beg me in the future. Genie Xuan left her office with a dark face. At this moment, a large group of onlookers had gathered outside Luo Qingchen's office. Even though Star Sky Group's facilities were high-end, they weren't a hacker company, so the soundproofing in the office wasn't that good. Moreover, the two of them were speaking very loudly just now. There are even a few sentences in which he deliberately raised his voice to overpower the other party's imposing manner. What are you looking at? Aren't you going to do anything? Genie Xuan was expressionless as he looked coldly at the group of onlookers. As soon as he finished speaking, he strode forward without looking back. The onlookers instantly went into a state of chatter. Why do you think Genie Xuan is so angry? Although he and Luo Qingchen are a couple, everyone in the company knows that it was Luo Qingchen who chased after Genie Xuan. Yes. He's so strange. He was the one who recommended Gu Fanfan as the female lead, but now he's asking Luo Qingchen to play the supporting role. Ahem, you don't understand this. Didn't he say that it's very easy to flop a youth drama without a popular female lead? He wants to boost the popularity of the TV series. Be reasonable. Who would want to do that? Now Luo Qingchen is definitely the female lead. If it were me, I wouldn't be a supporting role. Exactly. And it's the one who stole her role. I really don't know what Genie Xuan is thinking. Chapter 2475. Listening to the discussions of the crowd outside, Luo Qingchen expressed, everyone's values are quite normal. Only that Genie Xuan, he's really overconfident. At first, she didn't understand Genie Xuan very well, but after the argument just now, Luo Qingchen was very sure. In Genie Xuan's heart, the previous host was like a 10,000-year spare tire. Whether it was love or work, as long as Genie Xuan needed it, the previous host would help. The previous host's help was natural in Genie Xuan's eyes, but if she didn't help, in his eyes, not taking care of the newcomer was a heinous crime. After Sister Mi dispersed the crowd, she returned to Luo Qingchen's office. She looked at her with an anxious expression. Tell me seriously, you really broke up with Genie Xuan? Yes. Luo Qingchen gave a shrug. Is it very strange? If you don't break up with Scum, do you want to keep him for the new year? But, Sister Mi, bitter lips, don't you like him a lot? That was before. Luo Qingchen flipped through the script. People, they have to grow up and fall heavily before they know pain. The previous host knew pain too late, so she ended up in such a tragic state. Then should we announce this news unilaterally or wait for the other party to announce it? Sister Mi asked for her opinion. These 2 days, the internet has been abuzz about the casting of youth. There are many people cursing that Gu Fanfan. If we take the opportunity to break up, it will be beneficial for us. Luo Qingchen held her chin with her right hand and was silent for 2 seconds. The previous host and Genie Xuan didn't publicly admit their relationship. If we announce a unilateral breakup, it will feel like we're trying to attract attention. Previous host. Sister Mi frowned. Who is the previous host? Luo Qingchen realized her mistake and quickly smiled awkwardly. It's a general name. It was all the system's fault. Always calling the previous host, she almost jumped into a deep hole. Why does the host always push the fault onto the system every time she does something wrong? Because you're not cute. Oh. Sister Mi responded and continued to ask, Then are we not going to do anything? We still have to take precautions, but we don't have to do it so deliberately. Luo Qingshun pursed her lips and said, I'll deal with it myself. I'm going to Antarctica. Don't arrange anything for me this week. Wait until I come back. Puff. Oh my Qing. You really want to find you, Shun? Shoo. Luo Qingshun covered her mouth with her right hand and said, Keep your voice down. Sister Mi immediately nodded and said in a low voice, He's really hard to deal with. Be careful. Don't worry. Luo Qingshun nodded and said, When I'm not here, I'll leave everything else to you. Okay. At the same time, Jin Yishuan returned to the studio. His mood was quite bad, but he couldn't lose his temper at the crew. He could only sit quietly and drink a large bottle of water to suppress the anger in his heart. Director Xiao and was hesitantly teaching the supporting male lead and didn't notice his return. Only Gu Fanfan noticed his presence. She slowly walked up to him, looked at him, and asked, Did something happen? I feel that you're not in a good mood. Actually, the reason why Gu Fanfan paid attention to Jin Yishuan's actions was because she used her free time to search for some topics related to youth. Chapter 2476. She knew that she was an unknown person. She only got this opportunity because of Jin Yishuan, Yi Su, and her own luck. But it was undeniable that she thought she was more suitable for the role than Luo Qingshun. She also believed that she could play it well. Therefore, she could only cheer for herself in her heart and tell herself that she could do it. But she was still worried. It was said that without the popular star Luo Qingshun, the search volume of Youth dropped. Some people even formed an anti-Dash Youth fan club to resist the choice of the female lead. In just 2 days, this matter occupied the headlines of the entertainment industry. The exposure did increase a lot, but it was all negative comments. Just now, she accidentally heard that the director wanted to cast Luo Qingshun as the second female lead. Her heart calmed down. After all, she knew how popular Luo Qingshun was. She also thought that she was a very good actress, but as the motivated Gu Fanfan, she believed that as long as she worked hard, she would be more popular than Luo Qingshun. It's okay. Jin Yishuan heard and slowly raised his head. How was the audition? Gu Fanfan pursed her lips and smiled. It was okay. The director said, I was very talented. That's good. Jin Yishuan patted her shoulder and comforted her. Don't worry too much about the rumors on the internet. Be yourself and believe in yourself. Jin Yishuan was like a dazzling light that shone into Gu Fanfan's life at this moment. He made her, who was supposed to be ordinary, dazzling. At first glance, it was really the story of the prince and Cinderella. Unfortunately, this so-called evil female lead was not so easy to deal with. Yes, I will. I will definitely work hard and not let you down. Gu Fanfan scratched her head shyly. All right, I just heard the director ask you to find Ms. Luo to play the second female lead. Is she willing? When she asked this question, Gu Fanfan was very nervous, but on the surface, she had to pretend that it was just a casual question. This feeling was like the darkness hidden in the depths of her heart. It was okay that she couldn't tell outsiders, because her evaluation of him was that he was sunny, kind, and full of a sense of justice. Jin Yishuan frowned, and his expression immediately stiffened. He snorted and said, Don't bother about people like her. She's been acting like a big shot for too long. She really thinks she's a movie queen. Actually, it was only because of a Xinxia film that became popular. As for Luo Qingshun's sudden change and her resolute breakup with him, not only did he not feel happy, but his heart was stuffy and flustered. Even the good feelings she had for Gu Fanfan were suppressed by such a wave of resentment. It was unbearable. She didn't want to. Gu Fanfan lowered his head dejectedly. The next second, he immediately smiled at Jin Yishuan and said, Actually, you can't blame her for this. Although I relied on my own ability, no matter what, I still stole her role. She must blame me in her heart. Although Gu Fanfan had a smile on his face, he was very worried. After all, it was her first novel. She hoped that it would have a very, very good response. She also hoped that she could stand under the spotlight and show her charm. It's her loss that she didn't want to. I don't know what wrong medicine she ate. Jean Yixuan snorted and said, with such a good script, there are many people in Starry Sky who want to play the second female lead. Don't worry about this. You just have to play your role well. If you don't understand, just ask me. Chapter 2477. But Jean Yixuan was wrong about one thing. There were indeed many talents in Starry Sky, but popular women did not tend to play the second female lead, and popular women did not want to play the second female lead. In the end, the second female lead role could only be played by a small-time star. A movie that had been hyped to the max became extremely lonely overnight. Neither Xiao and nor Jean Yixuan expected this. That night, after Luo Qingshun took a shower, she lay on the bed and logged into her Weibo account. She posted a Weibo at the most appropriate time and completely dealt a fatal blow to youth. Luo Qingshun, if it's fated, it will be there. If it's not, don't force it. Wait for an unexpected encounter. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. A few minutes later, the Weibo post she just posted had thousands of comments. The original owner was a popular movie star who became famous overnight, but she did not handle the matter of choosing the role for youth well. At that time, she cared too much about Jean Yixuan, so she ruined her own life because of a small matter. This time, she had to make sure that every single detail was on point. No matter how strong Gu Fanfan's Mary Sue Halo was, she would never repeat the mistakes of the original owner. Luo Qingshun drank the cucumber juice that the housekeeper brought upstairs while reading the comments on Weibo. After flipping through a few pages, she could not help but smile. Yes, the effect was good. Kite, oh my god. This is my Chi-Chi's Virgo, okay? Can the director give the original a little hope when choosing the role? Deep Sea Little Whale. 666. I haven't even seen the first and second female lead, and it's just my Yixuan alone. I'm speechless. Xiao Xiao likes to eat rice cakes, haha. I can feel that she was wronged from Youqing's words. The entertainment industry is so dark. A person with no fame can be the female lead. I don't know what benefits they gave the director. Cutie duo, what benefits can there be other than sleeping with her? Faint smile dream. Cutie duo, I don't think you can say that. After all, there is no evidence. Cutie duo, faint smile dream, there is no evidence. The place where the invisible person fell in the center of the July promotional poster was Youqing's picture. Although he couldn't see the person, the silhouette was exactly the same. Forever together. Cutie duo, plus 10086. All of us could tell that it was Mi Qing, but in the end, everything changed overnight. Bali. Let's see what Gu Fanfan can do to Xia Chi-Chi. With such a female lead, even the author would cry until he fainted and went to the toilet. Okay? Everyone's messages entered her eyes, and Luo Qingshun looked over them, feeling very happy. She didn't post on Weibo as soon as the female lead was announced. She was waiting for a period of time to settle down, so that the gossip among the netizens would become even more heated. After the announcement of the second female lead was made, she would post on Weibo, and it would be enough to push youth to the forefront of the storm. Moreover, it was such a Weibo with chicken soup for the soul. The meaning behind it was very deep. Just as she was about to take a beauty sleep with a satisfied look on her face and rush to see penguins the next morning, her phone beeped twice. It was a special notification sound. Luo Qingshun frowned. It was really a WeChat message from Jean Yixuan. Luo Qingshun, what do you mean by posting such a Weibo? Jean Yixuan. Chapter 2478. Luo Qingshun. Almost in the next second, she pressed the send button. She faced this annoying man with the coldest attitude. After a while, the phone rang again. But this time, it wasn't the exclusive ringtone, but a very ordinary message notification tone. This kind of man wants to have an exclusive ringtone? Dream on, okay? Don't you know? What do you mean by posting on Weibo? Jean Yixuan. At this moment, Jean Yixuan, who was standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window on the 18th floor of his house, looked particularly flustered and exasperated. In just a few minutes, he had already received several phone calls. They were all about the cast of Youth and Luo Qingshun. He always had a feeling that he had clearly distanced himself from Luo Qingshun, but suddenly, he seemed to be closer to her. This feeling made him particularly irritable and depressed. His attitude when talking to Luo Qingshun was already bad, and when he was anxious, it was even worse. Luo Qingshun thought about it, and before she could find the appropriate words to fight back, Jin Yishuan's message came. Gu Fan is a newcomer. If you are dissatisfied with anything, come at me. Don't do these kinds of tricks. Jin Yishuan. Logically speaking, when Luo Qingshun received this WeChat message, she felt that she was really angry. If a person like her was really angry, there were only two ways to express it. 1. She didn't say a word. 2. She became a tentacle monster. Crazy bombing with speed. This time, she chose the second option. Yo, what's wrong with you? Do I need your permission to post on Weibo? Luo Qingshun. What do you mean? It was literally what it meant. Don't understand? If you don't understand, go to the elementary school next door and retake the language class, okay? Luo Qingshun. Gu Fan is a newcomer. You have repeated this so many times. Let me ask you, what does it have to do with me that she is a newcomer? Luo Qingshun. Finally. Who are you? Coming at you? Jin Yishuan. You are really giving yourself face. A brain is a good thing, but not everyone has it. Luo Qingshun. In less than 60 seconds, Luo Qingshun quickly sent out these 4 messages. Then, he directly blacklisted Jin Yishuan in the upper right corner and did not accept any news from him. With so many memories of the original owner, Luo Qingshun naturally knew that Jin Yishuan was an impatient person. In fact, he was more suitable for number 1 because the more you ignored him, the more anxious he would be. But Luo Qingshun really wanted to scold him. She wanted to scold him from the bottom of her heart. After scolding, not giving the other party any chance to retort was definitely the best way to infuriate Jin Yishuan to death. Jin family's mansion. All he heard was the sound of the iPhone 10 crashing to the ground. Jin Yishuan put his hands on his hips and blushed. Lying on the floor, the screen of the phone lit up. On it was a message that hadn't been sent, and it was rejected. He almost never thought that Luo Qingshun would treat him like this. This feeling was like a person who used to be obedient to you suddenly stabbed you with a knife one day. Jin Yishuan clenched his fist and heavily knocked on the floor-to-ceiling window. Wait! The next morning, Luo Qingshun got up early in the morning. After fully armed, she went to a few concerts. She thought that there wouldn't be anyone at such an early boarding time and flying to Antarctica, but the entire airport was crowded. People who didn't know would think that there was a concert at the airport gate at 6:30 in the morning. She really underestimated Gong Yubai's popularity. Chapter 2479. Imperial God, Imperial God, Imperial God. Wave after wave of shouts filled her ears. Luo Qingshun pushed up her large black sunglasses and muttered with a sigh. It seems like this Gong Yubai is a bit difficult. Does the host want the system to check the male lead's affection for the previous host? Are you here to make me angry? No. So you think I need it? Yes. Luo Qingshun blinked as she thought. Is there a plot that she didn't get? Good. You said affection. Ding. The male lead's affection for the previous host is 0%. Scram. Although Luo Qingshun had shouted scram in her heart, she still couldn't believe it. But she was really angry. Avoiding the crowd, Luo Qingshun went straight to the VIP channel. As she was a popular movie star herself, she had an exclusive VIP passage at every airport. Luo Qingshun had a large suitcase in her left hand, and her right hand was in her pocket. There was a picture of Gong Yubai in it. After all, she had never seen the real person before. Although this Gong Yubai was really good-looking, it would be awkward if she recognized the wrong person. The VIP channel was quickly processed, and Luo Qingshun bought first class. There weren't many seats, and the price was beautiful. Although she didn't know what class Gong Yubai bought, based on her sixth sense, a man with this personality would definitely buy first class. Facts proved that her thoughts weren't wrong at all. There were many people in first class. Other than the 2 old couples, there was only a couple and a little girl in her early 20s. Luo Qingshun was sitting by the window. Even after getting on the plane, she didn't take off her sunglasses that covered half her face. Gong Yubai was sitting next to her. Although there was a channel between them, Luo Qingshun could still see his face from the corner of her eye. It really was a face that could move one's heart. It was a face that was carved like a sculpture and a pair of cold eyes that sparkled. He just sat there casually with a simple Apple laptop in front of him, which made people feel that his identity was extraordinary. Luo Qingchun took out a notebook and a pen from her carry-on bag. After the plane took off, she had been scribbling in the notebook. Most of the words were gong yu bai, gong yu bai, gong yu bai. When a person was writing aimlessly, they would always write down the things that were on their mind the most. Luo Qingchun was thinking about how to create a scene where they met. In the next second, he heard a ding in his head. The pen in his hand slipped out and landed at Gong Yubai's feet. Of course, this was definitely not a coincidence. Luo Qingchun did it on purpose. "Excuse me, can you help me pick up my pen?" Luo Qingchun asked politely. Her sunglasses met Gong Yubai's deep eyes. He nodded lightly and slowly picked up the pen. He handed it to her and said, "Here." It was a slightly suave and magnetic voice. His words were concise and comprehensive, but there was a hint of coldness. "Thank you." Luo Qingchun took the pen and accidentally touched his cool fingertips. She felt inexplicably nervous. Just as she was about to take the pen, the girl in her early 20s walked up and smiled at Gong Yubai. "God, can you give me an autograph?" Chapter 2480. Luo Qingchun thought that if she had a frying pan in her hand right now, she would definitely smash that girl's head with a hammer. Of course, that was only if she wasn't a celebrity. After all, she didn't want to be in the headlines the next day. Gong Yubai's expression was indifferent, and no one could tell if he was happy or angry. His gaze fell on Luo Qingchun's fountain pen as he softly said, "I can give you an autograph, but shouldn't you ask this young lady if she's willing to lend you the pen?" Wow, was he that handsome? At that moment, thousands of miles high in the sky, the sunlight shining through the cabin's small window shone on Gong Yubai's beautiful side profile. Coupled with his indifferent but somewhat protective words, she almost cried out in surprise. "Okay?" However, due to her so-called image, she only quietly looked at him, pursed her lips, and couldn't hide the smile at the corner of her mouth. "Oh," the girl who wanted the autograph responded. She pursed her lips and looked at Luo Qingchun with some unwillingness. "Can you lend me the pen?" Although it was an inquiry, Luo Qingchun felt that it was unpleasant to the ear. "The thing I hate the most is to take things for myself without asking." Luo Qingchun rejected her almost without thinking, but she still added, "The stewardesses all have pens. You can borrow one from them." She could probably understand the little girl's excitement from seeing her idol, but that didn't mean she could be rude. She could tell that this little girl was from a rich family. However, no one in this world would spoil you. She felt that it was necessary to at least ask politely before using other people's things. Otherwise, it would be reasonable for others to reject you. Borrowing was out of affection, not out of duty. "You." The girl's face turned red, and she glared at Luo Qingchun with resentment. Obviously, Luo Qingchun made her lose face in front of her idol. In the next second, she raised her voice, pressed the service bell, and angrily said, "Stewardess, come here." Because it was first class, the stewardess came very quickly. "Hello, how can I help you?" "I want a pen." The girl frowned. Although she was unwilling, she still added, "Can you lend it to me?" "All right, please wait a moment." Luo Qingchun snorted. Although she wasn't 100% satisfied with the girl's behavior, she felt that she could still be taught. However, she was just a passerby in her life. She would not interfere with her life in the future. However, the pen was hers, so she had the right to decide whether to borrow it or not. In the end, Gong Yubai gave her an autograph. She looked very happy. Occasionally, when she met the eyes of Luo Qingchun through her big sunglasses, she would proudly avoid them. Luo Qingchun didn't think that she was hostile. She was just a little spoiled and needed to be educated. The plane continued to move forward, and the temperature dropped significantly in the latter half of the night. Although there was heating, Luo Qingchun still felt a little cold with 2 layers of clothes wrapped around her. Woo, woo woo, hoo hoo hoo. There was the sound of heavy breathing that kept coming. Luo Qingchun knit her brows as she looked back. The bell above the head of the girl who had asked for an autograph this morning had lit up. The stewardess hurried over. In less than a minute, there was an announcement in the cabin. "Ding dong." Dear passengers, sorry to disturb you. A passenger on the plane suddenly had a heart attack. If there are any passengers in the medical industry, please call the stewardess next to you and go to the first-class cabin to help. Chapter 2481. What's going on? Why did she suddenly fall down? She was fine in the morning, but she's still so young, Mom. Mom, I'm scared. Most of the people in the first-class cabin were awakened, and the people in the first few economy cabins also rushed over. Turn on the lights to the brightest. Luo Qingqian squatted down to do a simple examination and frowned through the big sunglasses. Acute myocardial infarction. The stewardess immediately said, I'll get the medicine. Okay. Luo Qingqian nodded and laid the girl's body flat. The blanket covered the position of her heart and looked at her. Can you hear me? She suddenly frowned and looked very painful. Luo Qingqian frowned. The situation is not very optimistic. I'm doing emergency treatment now. How long will it take for the plane to reach the destination? The stewardess said nervously, About 2 hours. It's too late. Luo Qingqian interrupted her and slightly pursed her lips. I've injected her with a heart protection needle, and it can only last for an hour at most. What should we do? This is the area of Antarctica. We've never been forced to land in this area. The stewardess was obviously in a dilemma and looked very flustered. She has an acute myocardial infarction and needs to be operated immediately. Although Luo Qingqian looked serious, her tone was very calm. If she doesn't reach the hospital within an hour, there's no need to call 120 when she lands. Why? Send her directly to the funeral home. Although Luo Qingqian spoke directly, it was necessary to use the simplest words to describe the consequences of the whole thing in such an emergency. At the same time, the young man sitting in the front looked sideways at Luo Qingqian, who was wearing a trench coat and black sunglasses, and his eyes became a little gentle. Okay, I'll ask the airport right away. The stewardess said, Miss, is it convenient for you to tell us your name? Luo Qingqian frowned slightly, hesitated for a moment, and slowly put down the sunglasses and said softly, Luo Qingqian. Hiss, a sound of sighing instantly sounded. At this moment, the people on the plane all looked at Luo Qingqian. Among them, Gong Yubai, who had been silent all this time. He almost immediately looked at Luo Qingqian, with some disbelief in his eyes. Luo Qingqian noticed the burning gaze, and when she turned around, her eyes met his. At this moment, some strange scenes flashing in Gong Yubai's mind. Those were scenes from his dreams. At the end of the world, zombies ran rampant. As a dual ability awakened, he embarked on a journey to save the world. Since he was young, he would dream of such a scene every once in a while. Therefore, when the movie Doomsday 2250 had to choose a male lead, he decided to act in it. The reason was actually because he wanted to find a figure. Of course, no one in this world dared to compete with him. As for why, ordinary people didn't need to know. Isn't this Luo Qingqian? The female lead of Jin Sushing. She's also a medical student. She's amazing. She's so beautiful and so low-key. I was looking forward to youth. Unfortunately, after the female lead was changed, I even unfollowed my Weibo. Yes. What the hell? I think Qingbao and Yishuan are a good match. What a pity. She naturally knew that after taking off the sunglasses, many people would recognize her. Chapter 2482. 10 minutes later, an announcement came from the plane. Attention to this passenger. Due to a sudden myocardial infarction on the plane, a passenger needs emergency surgery. Therefore, we will temporarily stop flying to Chile. We are deeply sorry for the inconvenience caused to all of you. In the end, the plane didn't decide to continue flying. Instead, it chose to make an emergency landing in Santiago. As soon as she got off the plane, Luo Qingqian only had one feeling. That was cold. After getting off the plane, some passengers still chose to transfer to Antarctica. Luo Qingqian glanced at Gong Yubai. He didn't seem to be planning to transfer. Luo Qingqian thought about it and decided to walk in his direction. She didn't expect to be stopped by the airport stewardess as soon as she took a step. Miss Luo, can you help us take a trip to the hospital? The stewardess said very politely, "The hospital just called us and said that they want to know the patient's body values at the beginning of the attack." I remember writing it on her arm. Luo Qingshan frowned slightly and seemed a bit hesitant. Recording the time of the patient's myocardial infarction and the patient's body data was something a professional would do. Her medical skills weren't great, but they weren't bad either. Before the girl was sent to the hospital, she had already written down all the recorded data on her arm for the next doctor who would treat her to check. There shouldn't be any problems. "Yes," the stewardess said with some difficulty. "The doctors here don't understand Chinese." They also said that the East and West record data differently, and it's easy to make mistakes. Luo Qingshan frowned and looked in Gong Yubai's direction. She didn't know that Gong Yubai, who was standing not far away, suddenly disappeared. "God, what's going on? Where did this person go?" Luo Qingshan was a bit anxious. She deliberately followed Gong Yubai to show her face, but she didn't expect to lose him after a few tries. At this time, there was a stewardess beside her who kept nagging. "Miss Luo, if it's possible, I'll take a bit of your time and go to the hospital with me." Luo Qingshan closed her eyes and then opened them immediately. "Got it. Let's go now." After arriving at the hospital, Luo Qingshan realized that there was a big difference between domestic and foreign medical treatment. Many medicines had different usages and contents, including some commonly used medicines. Luo Qingshan explained the girl's condition to the attending doctor in fluent English. 10 minutes later, she was pushed to the operating table. "I've really troubled you today." The stewardess bowed and said, "Our airline has reserved rooms for passengers staying in San Diego today. I'll take you there." Luo Qingshan yawned, looked at the operating light, and said, "No need. I haven't decided whether to fly to Antarctica or not." The stewardess nodded faintly and handed the business card in her hand to Luo Qingshan. "Our airline will also provide the return ticket. If you need it, you can call me at any time." Luo Qingshan took the name tag and glanced at it. "Thanks." The main thing was that she did not know where Gong Yuebai was. If he had returned, she would go to the South Pole to take a look. Was she really going to look at penguins? Luo Qingshan sat in the hospital for a while and checked Weibo. Chapter 2483. Hashtag popular starlet Luo Qingshan. Plane rescues little girl with myocardial infarction. Hashtag looking at the title. The corners of her mouth couldn't help but raise slightly. The entertainment industry was like this. As long as you showed a positive image to the public, their evaluation of you would be particularly good. Because the original owner didn't have the Mary Sue halo, every time she was exposed, it was bad news. She didn't have a chance to show herself at all. However, what she didn't know was that all roads lead to Rome, and opportunities were created by oneself. Of course, opportunities were also left to those who were prepared. She was well prepared and ready to accept the challenge of the Mary Sue halo. However, before that, she had to put out her character. The entertainment industry had its own way of living, and since she was here, she had to follow its rules. Luo Qingshan logged into her Weibo and posted a concise statement. Luo Qingshan V. Don't worry. Everything is fine. In less than 10 seconds, the phone vibrated crazily. It seemed that many fans were worried about her current situation, so they were always paying attention to her Weibo. As soon as she posted, several pages of replies were refreshed. Candy-colored little princess. Is my Qing okay? Why was I nervous when I saw the plane crash landing? 9 Rue little fairy, wow. I didn't expect my Qing's medical skills to be so good. Wasn't it like a silver needle in ancient times that could bring the dead back to life? Light-colored Liguang AI. Someone must have stolen my Qing's role. So my Qing is sad and relieving herself. Oh, Wood. That's right, Qing baby, don't be sad. Were you cold? Take good care of yourself. Penled. Looking at such comments, Luo Qingshan's mouth unconsciously raised slightly. In the beginning, he had wanted to sell his character. But after seeing the messages from the little fans, she suddenly felt that the most important thing was to tell them that she was safe. After all, she had never met them, but they were sincerely worried about her. Although some of them were definitely not real fans, most of them must be cute little fairies. She liked this feeling, not because of vanity, but because she also had her own armor. After replying to a few messages, the light on the operating table dimmed. When the doctor walked out, the little girl was pushed out as well. He told her about the success of the operation in broken English. Luo Qingqian nodded to show that she understood. At that time, the little girl seemed to be half awake. She glanced at Luo Qingqian and moved her lips. Although Luo Qingqian couldn't read lips, she could understand the light reflected in her eyes. She was thanking her. Rest well. The hospital has already contacted your parents. Luo Qingqian chuckled and said, remember to be polite in the future. Your Prince Charming will not like girls who are not polite. When she heard this, her eyebrows trembled slightly before she nodded seriously. Luo Qingqian didn't leave the hospital until she was pushed into the observation ward. The sky was dark, and the cold wind was blowing on their faces. He glanced at his phone. It was already 4:30 in the morning. Because it was close to the South Pole and it was winter, the temperature in San Diego was especially low. Even though she was wrapped in a thick coat, she still felt cold and shivered. There were not many people in the country, unlike abroad. In addition, it was early in the morning, so there was no one around. Only the faint light from the hospital entrance shone on her cheeks. Suddenly, she couldn't help but laugh at herself and murmured, why do I feel that my enthusiasm to help people today is more like a Mary Sue? This world is really scary. The host is kind-hearted. Chapter 2484. She chuckled and replied, this is the most basic principle of being a person. There aren't many kind people in this world. At least don't let them feel lonely. In the next second, a Lincoln limousine appeared in front of her with a whoosh. System, do kind people have to go through hardships? System, why aren't you saying anything? Are you playing dead when you encounter danger? In the end, when the four burly men got out of the car, the system still didn't give her any response. Hello, Miss Luo, the young master sent us to pick you up. Young master? Luo Qingqian's eyebrows trembled. She pursed her lips and said, who is your young master? Young master Gong you by. After leaving the hospital, they drove for half an hour and arrived at a villa in the Wine Manor. Gong Yubai wore a white bathrobe and held a 1982 Lafite in his hand. He stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window and frowned slightly. Luo Qingqian, Luo Qingqian, Luo Qingqian. This name was very familiar. In the dream that kept appearing, there was a girl named Luo Qingqian. Every time he wanted to take a good look at her face, he would wake up from the dream. In order to dispel the doubts in his heart, he woke up and personally filmed Apocalypse 2250. He didn't know why he had this strange dream, but he couldn't forget the scene of their first meeting on the plane. Even when he gave her the pen, he was inexplicably nervous. He had never felt this way before. The Antarctic project was canceled. He wanted to meet this dream that he had had for more than 20 years. Beep, beep. The limousine stopped in front of the villa. The four burly men bowed to her at the same time, which made her feel a little funny. The young master is waiting for Miss Luo upstairs. This way, please, and thank you. On the way, Luo Qingqian was thinking. Seriously thinking. Whether it was when she deliberately wrote the pen on the plane, or when the girl had a heart attack, or when she got off the plane, she didn't receive any notification from the system to give her favorability. Then here came a question. Since Gong Yubai didn't have a good impression of her, why would he invite her to the villa? Wait, villa? This is San Diego. Gong. Gong Yubai didn't have a villa. Even if his net worth increased because of Apocalypse 2250, one movie could not make him that rich. She could accept having a villa in the country, but she couldn't accept having a villa as soon as the plane landed. In the next second, Luo Qingqian suddenly looked up. The burly man opened the door to the master bedroom on the third floor and saw Gong Yubai straight back. Young master, Miss Luo is here. All right, you can leave now. Yes. With a bang, the door to the master bedroom was slammed shut. Gong Yubai turned around with a faint sparkle in his deep eyes as he looked at Luo Qingqian and said, I've long heard of your name. Same here. Luo Qingqian immediately responded, God Yu's current fame in the entertainment industry is unparalleled. She knew how to brag about business, too. You compliment me, I'll compliment you. Luo Qingxun thought that Gong Yubai would respond with a compliment, but he said something that stunned her. Chapter 2485. Your dream. Luo Qingxun pursed her lips and said, What dream? Shouldn't things like dreams be fake? Don't tell me that you brought me to your villa so late at night, so that I can interpret my dreams. In fact, she was very happy. After all, she thought that she wouldn't be able to capture him and come here for nothing. But now, Gong Yubai even gave her a chance to be alone with him. Pretty much. Gong Yubai picked up the red wine on the side and poured half a glass for her. If you can solve your doubts, I'll guarantee that your position in the entertainment industry will be smooth sailing. It seems that you're not just a popular idol. Luo Qingxun took the red wine and drank it in one gulp. She smiled and said, Ask away. In fact, she didn't like the feeling of making a deal, but at this moment, Gong Yubai didn't have a good impression of her, so she couldn't say anything. This person was really a bit difficult. Gong Yubai was stunned for a moment. Seeing her drink a large glass of red wine without a red face and panting breath, he slightly narrowed his eyes, and a touch of appreciation appeared between his eyebrows. He gentlemanly filled her glass again and said, I don't know if Miss Luo has seen the movie I made. Luo Qingxun took a sip of red wine. The color of her lips was particularly moving. She drank as she nodded and said, I remember. I always dreamed that I was in a post-apocalyptic world and awakened two abilities. In this world, there was a person called Luo Qingxun. PFFF, cough, 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 cough. Before Gong Yubai's voice fell, Luo Qingxun almost choked on the red wine in her mouth. What was this situation? At the end of the mission, would there still be a connection between planes? Was the system sure it wasn't teasing her? Of course, at this time, the system would definitely not say a word and play dead. But obviously, Luo Qingxun couldn't play dumb. After all, her actions just now had already explained a lot. Sure enough, it's you. Gong Yubai narrowed his eyes and walked towards her step by step. They weren't far from each other. Even with Gong Yubai's small steps, he arrived in front of her after 4 or 5 steps. So what if it's me? Luo Qingxun was extremely nervous, but on the surface, she pretended to be calm and collected. She faintly raised her eyes and said, So what if it's not me? So, you had the same dream? Gong Yubai's question was very direct. Perhaps it wasn't direct, but it was the only connection he could think of. Your awakened ability is ice water, right? Luo Qingxun put her hands in her pockets and pursed her lips with a faint smile. Gong Yubai froze for a moment. His beautiful brows furrowed slightly, and his magnetic voice sounded in her ear. Yes. It can even erase the memories of others? Yes. The Luo Qingxun in your dream has fire and space abilities? Yes. Every time he said, yes, his expression was different. It was a kind of incessant eagerness and excitement. Cough, cough. Luo Qingxun took a sip of red wine and cleared her throat. She looked at him and said, One last question. Ask. His gaze was very deep. It couldn't be said to be gentle, but it was extremely focused. He had a feeling that he wanted to see her in his heart. In your dream, you really liked that girl called Luo Qingxun, right? Although she hadn't flirted in a long time, she felt that her ability to flirt hadn't decreased. Chapter 2486. After a while, Gong Yubai's eyes became more focused as he came closer and closer to her. Only when he was a few centimeters away did he say with narrowed eyes, Yes. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 10%. Yes, he had finally taken the first step on the broad road. At this moment, perhaps only Gong Yubai himself knew how much his heart was throbbing. In the past 20 years, he would dream of this scene every once in a while. He could feel that he was wildly in love with that girl named Luo Qingxun in his dreams. But when he woke up, he couldn't remember what she looked like at all. This feeling had always surrounded him. When he was 18 years old, he finally started writing the novel Apocalypse 2250. After he finished, he immediately found the most famous director in the country to make a movie out of it. Whenever he had this thought in his heart, he would watch a movie to suppress the throbbing in his heart. But today, it seemed like he couldn't suppress it anymore. Luo Qingxun looked at his beautiful eyes and her right hand softly tapped on his forehead as she said, "Because I was the hero who saved you in my previous life. That's why you keep having this dream. You should be thinking about me, all right?" The host really knows how to seduce people. And MP, could it be that I have to tell him that we met in the last world, that you were called Chien Sinai and I was Luo Qinshin? We fought zombies together and built a beautiful world. After that, Gong Yubai's left hand suddenly came up and firmly grabbed her wrist. With a gentle push, he wall-pressed her onto the sofa. This time, Luo Qinshin was a bit nervous. "Hero who saved me." Gong Yubai's brows slightly twitched as his beautiful eyes sparkled with a faint glow as he looked at her and said, "But why do I remember that I was the one who saved you in the dream?" "Nonsense." Luo Qinshin blinked as she seriously looked at him and said, "Saving each other. Then how did you become the hero who saved me?" His lips curled into a smile. Although his eyes were still bottomless, there was a trace of gentleness in them. "You." Luo Qinshan bit her lip and said, "I'm here to explain your dream, and you're questioning me." "I'm not questioning you." Gong Yubai narrowed his eyes and gently let go of her hand. "I'm thinking about how to repay a great hero like you." Luo Qinshan patted her clothes and immediately stood up. "Didn't God you just say that he would let me have a smooth journey in the entertainment circle?" "Uh-huh." Gong Yubai looked at her and said faintly, "Do you want to shoot a movie or a TV series?" "Anything is fine." Luo Qinshan thought for a moment and said, "But I have a lot of scripts in my hands right now. It's just that I haven't had the time to read them yet." Before he left, he had promised Sister Me that he would take some time to take a look and give her an answer. He didn't expect that there would be so many things to do along the way that he didn't have the time at all. "Put down the scripts in your hands." Gong Yubai casually picked up the tablet on the table and handed it to Luo Qinshin. "This year, 3 big directors will start shooting new dramas. 2 movies and 1 TV series. You can take a look." Luo Qinshan reached out to take the tablet, but Gong Yubai's right hand retracted slightly. "Oh, what's wrong? God, you can't bear to give the scripts to me." Luo Qinshan pursed her lips with a faint smile. Gong Yubai snorted and said helplessly, "I'm not acting. Moreover, we're not the same sex." Then you should take it back. I just want the transaction to be more intense." "What do you mean?" Chapter 2487. Luo Qinshan froze for a moment, her clear eyes glimmering with a faint light. She slowly raised her right hand and knocked lightly on Gong Yubai's forehead, catching him off guard. Gong Yubai was startled and looked at her with a confused expression. "I say, Mr. Gong, have you read too many Xuanhua novels? Don't tell me that I can predict your dreams." Luo Qinshan took the tablet from his hand and said, "Imperial God is Imperial God. For this kind of foreign director's new drama, the female lead role is always reserved." Both movies were directed by foreign directors with a net worth of over 100 million, and the male leads had already been decided. One was a European and American film emperor, while the other was a Korean film emperor. They were both national male gods in the hearts of their fans. If I were to play the female lead in these 2 movies, I would definitely be visited by complete fangirls. Luo Qinshan pretended to tremble, and the corners of her mouth twitched as she smiled and said, "When the time comes, they'll use foreign languages to attack me, and I won't be able to refute." Gong Yubai glanced at her indifferently. His eyes carried a hint of seduction as he looked at her and said, "So you spoke your own language on the plane?" Luo Qinshan froze for a moment, then rolled her eyes at Gong Yubai. She pointed to the 3rd page of the tablet and said, "I plan to choose this TV series." She didn't know why, but she felt that Gong Yubai especially liked to argue with her. Not only was he not gentle, but he was also a little black-bellied. Moreover, his identity was too mysterious. This villa was definitely not a temporary one, but the Gong family's villa. Why did she say this? It was because there was a huge picture of Gong Yubai hanging on the east wall of the living room on the 1st floor. She didn't expect such a cold and aloof person to be so narcissistic. She also didn't expect that this was the capital of Chile, Santiago. It was thousands of miles away from the country. Gong Yubai's identity was definitely not simple to have a villa in this place. Gong Yubai snorted and looked at her coldly. So, unambitious? He thought she would at least choose a foreign blockbuster movie, but he didn't expect her to choose a TV series script. Not only were TV series long, but they also didn't make as much money. However, in terms of exposure, some TV series would bring about a much better effect than movies. However, in Gong Yubai's opinion, Luo Qingshun would probably choose a movie. He had a little hope that she would choose a movie. The American sci-fi movie Steel Robot and the Korean disaster movie 120 Degrees Below Zero. He had read the scripts of these two movies. They were definitely blockbusters, and there was basically no romance between the male and female leads. There were also none of those heart-palpitating kissing scenes. This isn't called not having any ambition. Luo Qingshun's eyebrows moved slightly, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. This is called being far-sighted. The TV series that Gong Yubai showed her was not on the list that Sister Mi gave her. It was director Li Yuan, the #1 director in China, who did not have any intention of letting her play the female lead. The original owner had a deep impression of this director. He had filmed a total of 3 movies and 1 TV series in his career. Whether it was the movies or the TV series, they were all extremely popular. Whether it was a new star in the entertainment industry or a few female stars with a bit of status in the entertainment industry, they all wanted to act in his movies. Unfortunately, this person's vision was very unique. There wasn't a single person he wanted to promote who didn't become popular, and he never gave a chance to those he didn't want to use. Chapter 2488. Shouldn't you be planning for Hollywood? Gong Yubai took a sip of red wine, leaned against the glass window, and squinted at her. His gaze was deep, and there was an indescribable emotion in his beautiful eyes. That's true, but compared to the male leads of the 2 movies, I prefer the male lead of this TV series. Luo Qingshun pointed to the handsome young man on the tablet and said, Yi Shiliang. He's the most popular newcomer this year. It seems that director Li Yuan has good taste. The most popular? Gong Yubai looked at her with a questioning gaze. Luo Qingshun seemed to have received the message he was transmitting to her and hurriedly said, I'll circle the main point of this sentence. Newcomer, newcomer. Why is this person not only black-bellied, but also a bit jealous? Please, brother. He cares about so many things with 10% favorability. Isn't he a psychopath with 100% favorability? No. She gently shook her head and thought, everything should be thought of positively. How can I think of negatively? Gong Yubai glanced at Yi Shiliang on the tablet and frowned slightly. This young man had become popular because he had acted in a youth idol drama before. Li Yuan liked the role he had played before. When he was preparing to shoot a youth film, he was the first person he thought of. You have to think about it carefully. Gong Yubai looked at her faintly and said, This is a youth film. Not to mention that there are many kissing scenes. There will even be bed scenes in the later stages. Are you sure you have no problems? No problem. Luo Qingshun nodded slightly and looked at him very calmly. Don't worry, I'm a professional actress. I won't embarrass you. Embarrass? Gong Yubai frowned and looked like he wanted to say something, but stopped. Why did he feel a little unwilling in his heart? He didn't want him to choose this youth film. Even though he knew that there was a big gap between this youth film and the current rotten youth films on the streets, the director was good, and the author of this book was good. He didn't appreciate many things, and this novel was one of them. If you're sure there's no problem, I'll ask my assistant to arrange a meeting between you and the director when we return tomorrow. Gong Yubai put his hands in his pockets and looked at him indifferently. The male lead has been confirmed. Do you want me to arrange for you to meet the male lead you like more? For some reason, Luo Qingshun felt that Gong Yubai's words were mocking and offensive. This feeling was very profound. No need. I'm friends with Yi Shiliang. Luo Qingshun crossed her arms and looked at Gong Yubai with a faint smile. God, you just need to help me get the role of the female lead. Don't worry about the kissing scene or the bed scene. I'm very dedicated. Ding! The sound of a wine cup being placed on the table was heard. It was neither light nor heavy, but he could feel the slight anxiety in the other's heart. Yes. A few seconds later, he faintly replied, Go out and find the butler to arrange a room for you. Come back with me tomorrow." He didn't know why he was so anxious. It was a strange feeling that he couldn't explain. He only knew that he didn't like this feeling, but he couldn't show it. If he suppressed it for too long, it would be easy to become depressed. "You're going back tomorrow?" Luo Qingshun pursed her lips and blinked. "You're not going to Antarctica?" Chapter 2489. Due to the limitations of the Antarctic region, the plane that was supposed to fly to Antarctica actually landed at New Zealand's Auckland International Airport. This was the closest airport to Antarctica, but not everyone who got off the plane would go to Antarctica. Some people might just go to New Zealand for a vacation or travel to other small cities there. Luo Qingxin knew that Gong Yubai was going to Antarctica from the information that Sister Mi gave her. It was said that he was recently studying some dying species, so Luo Qingxin guessed that he was going to Antarctica. However, because of the depth of the topic just now, she actually said it out loud. Cough, cough. Luo Qingxin cleared her throat and said, "I guessed, because I'm going to Antarctica for a vacation." In fact, she knew that no matter what explanation she said, the smart man in front of her wouldn't believe her. Moreover, he was most likely already suspicious of her purpose in his mind. However, she had no other choice. She knew a total of 10% favorability, so she couldn't say that she followed him. She didn't even need to think to know that the system would make a ding sound in the next second and directly deduct her favorability to 0. No, she couldn't blame the system. She should blame the man in front of her. He was Gong Yubai. Countless female celebrities wanted to work with him, and he was the idol that young girls were obsessed with. There must be a lot of people following him, and she didn't want to be one of those flowers. Therefore, Gong Yubai didn't have 100% confidence that he wouldn't admit it even if he saw through it. Is that so? His lips hooked up into a smile, and there was a faint smile in his eyes. In fact, he didn't know why his heart suddenly didn't feel so suffocated. It was probably because the person who kept appearing in his dreams was most likely following him. So he felt secretly happy. Secretly happy? It was really inconceivable that there would be such a word in his life. Early the next morning, Luo Qingshun set the alarm and got up at 7 o'clock sharp. She slept for less than 2 hours, and her head was heavy. She looked at the flight schedule last night, and there was only one flight from San Diego to China today. Moreover, it was 10 o'clock in the morning. She also called the flight attendant yesterday to book 2 first-class seats. In the end, the answer he got was that the first-class seats were basically all booked in advance, and only the economy class seats were left. There weren't many seats left in the economy class. Luo Qingshun booked 2 seats first, intending to use the cheap tickets to return Gong Yubai's favor. After eating the breakfast prepared by the housekeeper, Luo Qingshun went to the 3rd floor and knocked on Gong Yubai's door. "Get up, get up, get up." She glanced at the time. It was already 8 o'clock. Although this place was not far from the San Diego airport, it was about time to get up. Moreover, Gong Yubai had no sense of time or plan at all. If she hadn't booked the plane ticket in advance, she wouldn't have been able to go back today. She thought about how he had seriously said yesterday that he would bring her back to the country today. She found it a little funny. How was he going to return to China without booking a flight ticket? Was he going to use Doraemon's Anywhere door? "Get up." Before he could finish his sentence, the door was opened with a swish. The room was very dark, and only the light from the corridor shone into the room. There was a faint fragrance in the air. Gong Yubai was still wearing his nightgown, and his exposed body made people's hearts pound. Luo Qingshun froze for a moment, and her cheeks unconsciously flushed. She didn't know that in the next second, Gong Yubai suddenly grabbed her wrist and pulled her into the room. She only heard the door close with a bang, and the last bit of light was blocked outside the door. Chapter 2490. You. Luo Qingshun coughed twice. Her wrist slightly hurt from his tight grip. But at this moment, she couldn't care less about the pain. The light in the room was too dim, so dim that she couldn't see Gong Yubai's appearance. The next second, his magnetic voice sounded in her ear. "Last night, I dreamed of that scene again. I seem to have seen the girl's appearance." Dream? Could it be that she was talking about the apocalypse? Luo Qingshun's eyebrows slightly trembled, you're talking about? The dream where you have an ability? He faintly responded, his deep eyes looking into her eyes in the darkness, and asked, was it you? Was the person in the dream you? At this moment, when she saw Gong Yubai's slightly trembling right hand, she truly understood how important this dream that had accompanied him for more than 20 years was to him. The person who was called Imperial God by outsiders should have never seen him like this. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have given me the opportunity to play the female lead? Luo Qingshun pursed her lips and chuckled, breaking the somewhat chilly atmosphere. In an instant, she could feel that the other person had moved closer to her. The unique faint mint scent on his body surrounded her in layers. Luo Qingshun only felt that her heart was in her throat at this moment. After taking a deep breath, she actually forgot to exhale. The next second, she directly closed her eyes, feeling the so-called storm coming. Little did she know, only to hear tuta sounds, the lights in the room lit up. Why are you closing your eyes? Gong Yubai's voice, cool as water, slowly entered her ears. There was a hint of a smile in his tone. I lack vitamin A. My eyes are not good in dark places. Luo Qingshun hurriedly covered her burning ears with her right hand and sat on the sofa. Even if you don't lack vitamin A, you shouldn't have been able to see anything just now. Gong Yubai poured a glass of water, sat across from her, raised his eyebrows, and asked, yesterday, Director James told me that if you acted in Steel Robot, you would get an 8-figure salary. Eight digits? Luo Qingshun couldn't come back to her senses for a while. Even the top actress in Starlight might not be able to reach an 8-figure salary. Moreover, it was a foreign blockbuster. Are you moved? Gong Yubai narrowed his eyes at her and said, you still have a chance to choose before you meet Director Lee. After sending her off last night, he felt an inexplicable sense of anxiety in his heart. He sent an urgent email to James in the middle of the night. James quickly replied to the email, saying that not only could he increase the pay, but he could also increase the female lead screen time. Although Luo Qingshun has a baby face and is indeed very suitable for the female lead of a youth film, he is not very willing. This feeling of unwillingness was something he was constantly resisting in his heart. He had never thought that a person of his status would be troubled by a girl. But didn't we agree to act in the TV series You're More Stunning Than Time yesterday? Luo Qingshun rested her chin on her right hand and said, I'm a very loyal person. Besides, I talked to brother Shiliang on WeChat yesterday. We both said that we're looking forward to working together. She did send a WeChat message to Yi Shiliang, but it was just to say hello. Looking forward to working together was nonsense.